Welcome, welcome. Wait for a few people to show up, obviously. We don't want to be talking to nobody. There we go. What's up, Nathaniel? Two paquette, pork chop. Fan. Kirsten's in the house. How are you, everybody? Well, welcome. Welcome to YouTube and Twitch and X. Excited to have you guys. Welcome to another simulation talk and my crazy hair. I'm supposed to get a haircut on Friday, I believe. Hopefully. It's gonna make me look a little bit more like a person. Or less of a person, who knows? You never know. YouTube is so lonely, might have to switch. The Vine reality. If you're willing to do both, that would be amazing because we get the views, but I completely understand. TikTok is definitely more active as far as engagement, but actually, maybe double. Like TikTok maybe have double the people in any given moment, sometimes quadruple, but that's normal for TikTok. You do have a limit on characters there, so it depends on what you prefer. And hopefully YouTube will grow steadily and soon, and we'll have a more engagement on YouTube as well. Also, YouTube is much more limited less limited in what I can say, which honestly, this makes me strive to make the YouTube lives grow faster, so we have to rely on TikTok a lot less. I appreciate you. Where are you in the world, by the way? Are you in Australia or I confused some people? Welcome TikTok. Welcome everybody. To all the newcomers that are just joining in, I'm going to repeat this a few times just to get some people in introduction. Eric, Darren, Jackson, Yoshi, Corbin, Paige, welcome everybody. Corey, Steve, Sherry, welcome, welcome, welcome. Dustin, a win, USL, Pennsylvania, cool. There are 4 right here, that is true. Thank you, Kelsey. Are you the Kelsey that I know? I really hope so. So, welcome to Simulation Talk number 53 now. And just to all the newcomers, this channel mostly revolves around the simulation hypothesis. My name is Danny, and I'm actually claiming to have found proof that we live in a simulation. So not as a philosophical point, but an actual experiment anybody can run if they're willing, in which you can actually find out that there's code all around us. I know it sounds a little esoteric and a little simplistic, but weirdly that is the case. I've been vocal about this discovery in the last 3 years. My experiment was replicated successfully over 1,000 times worldwide. I am in contact with some of the leading researchers in the field. Always mention that it does not mean that all of them agree with me, but a lot of them are aware of it. And we are meeting here on the daily to discuss the discovery, the experiment itself, as well as science, philosophy, religion, spirituality, and whatnot. We do get into sometimes into esoteric and fun topics. Anybody to come and chime in. I had a nice and you found my channel. Which one do you mean? Because both are interesting. I just coincidentally liked my own channel, which is not a bad thing. Anybody who's joining on TikTok and wants to bring more people around, Kirsten was saying, whoa. It is whoa, especially if you're someone I don't know. If you're willing to tap on the screen a little bit to give us a little bit more likes, just so we have more viewers, That would be deeply appreciated. Boom, we jumped a little bit. Thank you guys. Have you always had facial hair? You didn't in my dream. Short hair and no beard. Well, obviously, at some point I had short hair and no beard. Yeah, there was. I think the majority of my life, I'm always going up and down. I don't know which one is up and which one is down, but I'm always going long hair, short hair, long hair, short hair. There were definitely I think most periods in my life I had short hair and no beard. Why? You mean like my actual face? Because that's wild. I would love to know more about that. Okay, so we have a little bit of a uptake of how many people showing up. Welcome everybody. I'm going to make one more round of a quick introduction, and then anybody is welcome to ask clarifying questions if something is not clear. This channel mostly revolves around the simulation hypothesis. My name is Danny, and I'm claiming to have found proof, actual proof, that we live in a simulation. I've proposed an experiment a few years ago in which if you project a diffracted laser on the surface and you ingest a particular molecule that I cannot name on a live chat, you will see code running in surfaces. This observation has now been replicated over 1,000 times successfully, and I am in contact with some of the leading researchers in the world on the topic. Not all of them agree with me, but most of them are aware of that, which makes this topic very current and interesting. And we're meeting here every single day to discuss the experiment, the implications, the details, and also science, religion, spirituality, philosophy, whatever comes to mind, we do. So welcome everybody. And if something is not clear, feel free to ask in the comments. And if you have an interesting subject, please put it in the chat first, because very often if somebody is asking to come on and talk, I don't even see it. It's buried on the bottom on the left, and sometimes I'm very immersed in my conversation with other people or in my own thoughts, and I don't notice that you were trying to come on. So if you put it in the chat, it's easier for me to see that you want to come on, but please specify a topic you would like to talk about, or you can say, hey, I just want to hang out and I want to talk about in general about a particular thing, but at least so we have a direction, because increasingly we have more and more people that want to come on and talk, but they're always more than welcome, but there's a limit to how large of a panel we can handle at the moment, I think, and I'm really referring to my attention span. So all of that being said, let's dive into whatever we're going to be talking about today. Laszlo Codes, welcome everybody. What's up, Laszlo? Good to see you, brother. And I'm actually increasingly encouraged and amazed the caliber of people that are drawn to the project and show interest in it. There were always some very capable people interested, but there's an uptake on the number of people of that flavor, and I'm deeply grateful for that. Laszlo, definitely one of them, so thank you for everything. And there's going to be a lot of fun updates. We're working on a documentary on this topic, and I'm pretty sure that very soon we're going to have some announcements to make, not just about a documentary. We'll keep you in the loop. If you want to check out my YouTube channel, it's Dango Thoughts. I'm going more in depth about all of these subjects. The videos are longer with more details than TikTok, let's say. All the other channels, my TikTok channel is Danny Goller. TikTok, my YouTube channel is DAN, one word, GO, second word, Thoughts. I'm also on X and now trying Twitch, but honestly, I'm almost non-existent there at the moment. I know it's a great commercial, but if you want to just show support and go follow me on X, that would be great. Just amplify some of the algorithms functionality. Cal, how are you, brother? Do you have insight on what you think the green might mean? Arrows seem like universal language. Yeah, that's exactly yesterday we were talking about if there's a difference in the different color lasers. Danny, I see you there. How are you, brother? And I said that on some in Cocody, I just gave an intro about the experiment. But if you would like specific details, please re-ask. No problem. I'll repeat myself. I'm just assuming that people kind of know or heard. But if you haven't, please ask any question and I'll definitely respond. You look like how I imagined Jesus would look like. Thank you. I get that increasingly more and more. This is truly not by an attempt. It's more laziness than anything else. Um, as many family members point out to me sometimes, gently. But I don't know. At the moment, I don't feel like needing a haircut every month and a half. So here we are. And aside from the fact that the whole, narrative of Jesus, this is supposed to be dark skinned or something, I don't know. But yeah, I get what you're saying. When did you come back? Did I miss the rapture? maybe we've this is it. This is where after. Um, who knows? It's even news to me. That's how secretive it was. But that's a very funny comment, by the way. So yesterday we were talking about the different colored lights and whether or not the observation in different colors produces a different content, as Cal here asked. And I said that, for example, in green we also see arrows aside from the code. Why is it that way? I have no idea. That is the short answer. The longer answer is that maybe it's because each part of the spectrum of light, and probably beyond the visible light, contains some bit of information that is required to understand and unlock whatever the puzzle is, which is not very clear what it is. But that would be my biggest assumption. I know it's unsatisfying, Cal, but have you? How many times did you see it since you saw it for the first time? Did you just see it that one time? Again, I'm just asking, just so we know. The person Seaguile on YouTube that said that saw me in a dream and then found me. Seaguile? Wait. Why are you asking a question about your own name? I'm confused. It says, I saw your face. That is wild. You saw my actual face in a dream, and now you found the channel. How did you find the channel? Do you mind me asking? This is fascinating. Danny, how are you, brother? And if anybody is on Twitch, make a sound. I want to know, because yesterday I think we had one person on Twitch, which I was very surprised. But then I didn't see any lives on Twitch. Anybody here is a Twitch expert? I didn't see that it retained the live. Is there something I'm supposed to do, or it does not retain lives, or what's going on there? All this technology, man. So much technology. I love it. I love it. Saw it twice so far. First time was as concrete, only saw general structures. Wait. First time wasn't as concrete. Oh, okay. So twice you looked at it. Okay. Please pray for all the hemorrhoids in the world. Are we praying for hemorrhoids to manifest more? Are we praying for hemorrhoids to disappear? Because I don't know if you're selling these cushions for people with hemorrhoids, and maybe then you want hemorrhoids to perpetuate and to exist more, so you can sell more of these little donut pillows. I don't know. Just let us know what we're praying for, so we're clear on that. Wait. Do the arrows point in certain direction or flowing at random? You know what? I've never noticed. I think maybe clockwise. Again, you know me and my opinion about the specificity of whatever we see in the laser. But maybe you're right. Maybe a lot of people talk about the specificity in the laser. Maybe this is a sign. Maybe I need to pay more attention to this. I see we have a little bit of an uptake of people. So all the newcomers, this channel mostly revolves around the simulation hypothesis. My name is Danny, and I'm claiming to have found actual proof that we live in a simulation. And we're meeting here on the daily to discuss the discovery, the experiment, and other topics like science, religion, spirituality, and philosophy. So if you find these topics interesting, if you feel that maybe you think I'm crazy, you're welcome to ask questions to verify or clarify or verify. Did I say verify? I said verify. It depends on your personal relationship with hemorrhoids. That is very true. No, but it also depends on what you're actually trying to pray for. Or you want us to randomly position ourselves in relationship to the existence of hemorrhoids. I love that some people just probably walk into the chat right now on this topic for a conversation called Simulation Talk 53 and the first word they hear is hemorrhoids. If at that point you don't know you're in the simulation, I don't know what to tell you. Laser to transport diff. It's really funny. So a laser 2 is the command. Like, this is brilliant. So Wesley said laser 2 as in like the command on what is it called, on terminal on a computer, like punch in command, and then transport hashtag diff dash squiggle world. What if this actually like this is the actual cheat code? This is amazing. I'm gonna save this. Thank you. Does the code show itself on different surfaces? Yes, in all the surfaces so far the code is exactly the same, including on your skin, which is a little confounding in the beginning, but you get used to it. And we have not managed to change the content at all. I am working on some ideas, including very powerful magnetic fields that potentially might change something about the code, and projecting it to different materials combined with the magnets, which I think is something that will yield fruit. Which, by the way, just discovered that you cannot say the word yield without sounding Russian, even if you're not Russian, and I am Russian. So, why is this today's a rambling day, I guess. Does the code show itself on different servers? I just read that. The symbols are so difficult to capture, but arrows seem like it way easier. It is easier, you're right. Something about it is still kind of, the signal is so enormous. It's kind of hard to tell. Eventually, when we get into the point, oh, Danny, I see I have an option to invite you to speak on TikTok. I'm not sure if you want that. If you do, please type in and I'll send an invite. So eventually, I think Cal will just have to gather, and we can look at it together. Maybe the laser energy excites the manifold at different frequencies. That is actually brilliant, Nico. Thank you for that. So basically, even though... Wait, you know what though? I'll tell you why it makes less... First of all, that's a brilliant idea, especially if you've never seen the code before. That's brilliant. I think that the reason it might not be the case is because when you are projecting the laser, you can kind of see the outlines of the code right outside of frame, so to speak. Because like I said, it's like a flashlight revealing the code. But what is happening is that you see the other code running more opaquely, but you can kind of see it, right? And because of that, it's clear that the code is the same, even where you're not looking. But actually, this might not be that crazy of an idea. I should write it down. This might actually be a very interesting thing. I can likely kick out a Saturday, but an interview may be hard to know. Sure. Well, that 1 second, guys. Well, play in my ear. Super. Chill. Oh, let's see. Okay, apologies for this. It was an important text to respond to. It was actually, it's gonna sound like I'm bragging. I'm not. It's just fun. It's actually John Dean, the researcher from San Diego. I'll be meeting him this weekend. We'll see. Maybe we'll do a little interview with him as well. Maybe the laser energy. Okay. Thank you, Michelle. That's a lot of likes. And Cal is down. Maybe the laser energy excites on manifold different frequencies. Привет, Nico. Как дела, братан? Are you Russian? Nico would be Russian. Something interesting happens. Have you ever seen sacred geometry on your body with the molecule? Has anybody here? I don't know what you mean by sacred geometry. You mean like mandalas and things like that, Kirsten? Like a tattoo. Oh, tattoos, yes. So the facial stuff. So you can see it on mushrooms too. You can see like ornamented like tattoos that kind of like go like around your eyes, almost like a mask, like a Venetian mask. And sometimes it's straight up like what is it called when the like Samoans when they do like a full like a full covering. That sometimes it looks like that. I definitely know what you're talking about. I can see it with mushrooms as well, and I've heard many people report this. So let's see. I noticed that there can be a big delay on the YouTube chat or the need for F5 refresh in order to be up to date. Don't necessarily think that there's a fix for it though. That's a brilliant idea using frequencies. So DE Vine Reality, I think what he means is that the frequency of the light excites whatever the code is doing and causes it to behave differently. Otherwise, it would have if we wouldn't be shining the laser at it, which is a possibility. But like I said, I think it's actually not doing that because you can see the outskirts or whatever is happening. Now, maybe it's exciting the local family of the code and it still stands, but it's still a great avenue to explore. I think, but I think he meant that just the frequency of the light excites it to a particular degree. Danny, let me check the settings on the audio because maybe it has something to do with certain. I know all the audio stuff is turned off, so I'm not sure what. I think it's because it's an external buffering stream. Also, it's possible we haven't passed the 30 minutes yet, but I know every 30 minutes on YouTube it makes a commercial, so maybe that's why. But at the moment, that's not the case. So I'm pretty sure that it's because it's from an external streaming software that streams to 3 different places. But I appreciate you taking the space in all of them. Maybe delay stacked up if the live long begins. Yeah, and most people are not as awesome as you, and they're not following from both, and I deeply appreciate that you do. You can just maybe mute one of them. I cannot join you in voice chat. It is 3 o'clock here. Girlfriend sleeping. Would love though, maybe one day. Yeah, and actually, you know what? I'll tell you what. I'll tell you a few days in advance when Melvin Vopson wants to come on, the physicist that wrote the second law of infodynamics paper. And this one will have to be in the morning for me because he is in England, and it'll be perfect timing for you to actually come on and when your girlfriend is not asleep. So we'll make that happen. Okay. So anybody has any particular subject that they want to cover? If not, I'll just randomly pick one and we can dive into it. Does the code always appear the same color, or is it just in the color of the laser? The color of the laser. The code, I think, is I wanted to say odorless, but colorless. It definitely will take the color of whatever laser you're using. I maintain that it's not in the light, but in the surface, because when you move the light, the code does not change. The code behaves as it would, and you're just passing the light across it, just like you would expect that it would look like if you're revealing something in the dark with a flashlight. Or if you're looking through a microscope and you're looking across the microbial world, and the microbial world is just doing what it's doing. The colors would necessarily be dependent on the spectrum that you're projecting onto it in order to see it, which is the case with basically everything humans do. As I'm sure a lot of you know, all space pictures that you see, that's not their actual color. These are colorings that we give according to the spectrum through which we're looking, and usually it depends on the particular chemical component that we're looking at. And then you combine all 3 of them. I don't remember what they are right now, but they're kind of equivalent to the RGB in color, and it makes it look beautiful and colorful like that. It would be interesting to see a more total picture of, omni already means total, right? So total picture of what something in space looks like with all the frequencies all together. I guess it just looks like everything, everywhere, all at once. Great flick. Just how CRISPR tech. Wait, the business. You're on YouTube. What are you doing in there, bro? Welcome. This is a parallel universe. Always glad to see your face there. Your emoji. Absolutely. Danny, always a pleasure. Let's see. So that is the answer to what color. Just how CRISPR tech can manipulate DNA. The next step is your discovery of the code would be figuring out how to manipulate the code. Yeah. Today we had this conversation with somebody who's with us on the chat. I'm not sure that he wants to be named. If he does, he's more than welcome to also come on and talk. But basically we talked about what the console is doing and what the potentials of it. And I have to be honest that I was a little, because I can't really manage to make a lot of it work. Some of it I can, but barely anything with real substance. I do think that maybe if we manage to put the suit on, we should be able to see something with the code or do something with the code. This is all like hypotheses. I don't know. But yeah, this would be amazing to be able to figure out what we're doing with the code. Okay, so I think I'll just pick a subject at random. 1 second. Can't find my... Oh well. Where is it? It drives me crazy. I don't know. Okay. I'll survive without it. So which direction do we want to take today? I think, honestly, actually talking a little bit more about the console might be interesting. To anybody who doesn't know, aside from the laser, after I proposed my experiment, after I discovered that it works, started sharing with people a few years ago, something very strange happened. I smoked the molecule, and all of a sudden something appeared in my room that I've never seen before. That was hyper realistic. It did not behave like a visual on some kind of a molecule or something like that. It behaved like a regular, what you would imagine augmented reality to be. It was like an object, like an egg-shaped object that appeared in my room. It was opaque, not even translucent, and starting opening up. If there was ever a moment in my life in which I can say my jaw actually dropped, that was that moment. I remember I literally stood there like this. And it wasn't, I wasn't acting it out for anyone. I just realized later that was my face. I could not believe what was happening. And actually my fiance was standing on the side, and she saw warping of her visual field from the side. She wasn't on it. It warped her visual field in her periphery. She jumped. She didn't understand what was happening. The bag that was on the floor across the room basically went like to her face and back. And she thought she lost her mind. And I was like, what happened? So she told me what happened. And then I looked down and I see the bag, and I told her that something appeared in the room. I had to explain it in real time, which I was flabbergasted. So it was kind of hard to get my bearings together in time. But I said, okay, so something just appeared. I don't know what it is. A piece of it, which was a piece that was opening up, just exactly when you jumped, was crossing the space. So it's almost like a black hole when it crosses across the sky and it warps space-time. Something about it that warped her visual field, which is just insane, right? So then it basically started appearing 100% of the time since then. And I discovered that this is essentially what I call the console. If you want to watch a whole video about it, including an illustration of what it looks like, you can go to Dango Thoughts on YouTube, DANGO Thoughts, 3 words, and look for a video called The Console. In there I go into the specifics, and I'm working on the next video that explains more about the menus. But basically, the business said can't discover a secret of the universe without cracking a few eggs. That's amazing. Oh, cool, Laszlo. That's awesome. We have Laszlo in the house. So basically, it started appearing, and every single time, and I call it the console. It's just a computer console that basically appears for me. And what's fascinating about it is that, first of all, how coherent it is. It's very stable in space. As actually Laszlo pointed out today, he said it was... How you doing, brother? It's very stable in space. Oh, I hear the echo also from YouTube. Can you hear me, Laszlo?
Hey, doing well.
Yeah, so there's a delay and we hear it again in YouTube. So if you talk, I think we're good. When I talk, you should mute yourself because we hear my echo
Okay,
on
yep, I
YouTube.
got that muted. Sorry about that, brother.
Yeah, you're good, you're good. So we were chatting today with Laszlo, and I'll introduce you in a moment. And actually, something that Laszlo said is you used the phrase, what did you say? Not stability in space. You used a different term.
Permanence.
Permanence, space permanence, which is a perfect term for it, right? And the train confirmed. Space permanence is what it exhibits. It's just like there, and it behaves and moves, but it's doing its own thing. And ever since then, this thing just started appearing. Since I maintain that I think what it does, it's there designed to train some facets of my attention that I'm not aware I have. But again, as Laszlo pointed out today, it's probably only the first step. It then wants me to actually do something with it, which I would agree. But I think I'm in the step before that. And I think it's time for me to figure out what it does. And I was engaging with it a lot less in the last few months, simply because it exhausts my brain. And because I'm not making any progress, I have to find my moments because it like exhausts my brain, and it doesn't. Nothing else in the space exhausts my brain like that. If I interact with it for 5 minutes, I just get exhausted. It's just really taxing, and then the next day I even feel like lethargic. So I have to pick my moments. But maybe now part of the experiments, I have to maybe put in, like I have to, plan for my energy properly so I can utilize it more often, and then see what we can, what we can actually do with it. All of that being said, Leslie, I want to introduce you. There's no way I'll be able to recapitulate your very impressive track record, but Leslie, you are a VR and AR designer, but you've been in the computational space, coding. I'm assuming also some data science and computer engineering space for quite a while, and you've been in game development for a long time, right?
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So I'm a AR VR developer, software engineer, techie, kind of hardware enthusiast, a little bit of everything, hardware and software. But mainly, my experience in the last decade specifically has been focused on augmented and virtual reality, mixed reality, and within the last few years, more specifically, neurotechnology as well.
Which is more like Neuralink, right? Along these lines.
Correct. Yeah, like brain-computer interface, exactly. Yep. Basically controlling computer and technology with your mind is the simple way of putting it.
So wow, that's what we're at.
Yeah, your description of the console when I saw your video is very intriguing, very similar to a lot of the work that I do in that space. And just you not coming from a technical background, I can tell, but still describing some of the same stuff without knowing it and some of the design paradigms. It's just very interesting. And it just, just really piqued my interest, so to speak.
And and Laszlo reached out and wanted to see if we can potentially try and recreate some of it, which will be incredible if we can do that. And I'm pretty sure we can. It sounds with your sets of expertise, we'll definitely be able to give it a serious stab.
Absolutely.
If we built a neural network where the weights were lenses instead of vectors. Wait. This is an interesting comment. Thank you, Eric Doggin. Also, good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. You say, if we built a neural network where the weights were lenses instead of vectors. You're talking about weights like in a when you're building a deep neural network, like back propagation weights. Is that what you mean? Instead of vectors, for instance, and the inputs were light shaped, the interference cost would be 0. Can you make sense of this message, Laszlo?
No, I'm a bit confused as well. I'm a bit familiar with AI. That's another one of the things I study as well, neural net. But I'm not sure what you're referring to there with lenses instead of vectors.
Did you mean tensors? Is that what you meant to say?
What was light shaped difference?
Light shaped.
I don't know. I could say, that sounds pretty technical. Not sure what he's saying.
Well, if you can clarify, that would be great. Let's see. Hey karaoke, how are you? Is it exhausting because you are expanding your awareness, learning new truth? Well, I mean, that sounds very esoteric, and maybe, but I think it's more that I'm engaging a lot of parts of my brain that I don't usually engage. Just kind of like when you don't do leg day for a long time, then you do a couple of squats, you get very sore very quickly. I think it's kind of like that. Literally, if you haven't used a certain, like, imagine that you have internal limbs of your attention that you've never used before because you don't know they're there, because you don't need them for most things in your three-dimensional space. But this is another conversation we had today with Laszlo, that because he works on the much more not theoretical side, but like on the technical side of how do you actually figure out, how do you connect the brain to something functional outside. You have to be very specific about how do you interact with the cortex, like what is actually happening. Do you have to tell the brain to first, this is something again, I'm just kind of like talking a lot about what we're talking about today, like do you, for example, in Neuralink, the guy that was the first subject, right? They've been working on the fact that, on this idea that in order to move something in the computer, he has to tell his hand inside his brain to move, and then it moves inside because it's like you're moving something inside. And then we said, okay, but why not just do it directly? Which is exactly what he essentially did, which is just learn how to move the thing directly without the idea of moving your hand, let's say. So it seems that it would make perfect sense that inside already now, even if we don't usually use these, there are certain internal limbs, so to speak, that if you've never used them before, but now they're trying to teach us how to do that. And if you're going to move a limb you've never moved before, I think it will just destroy you, like in the first few times. And I think that's essentially what's happening.
Yeah, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe like using brain power, burns up calories very similar to like doing an exercise. And so I can imagine certain mental tasks, especially if you're trying to basically, exercise a new limb or trying to connect with a new sensory input, that would be really taxing on the brain and could really kind of drain you. So that's another thing I hope maybe we can somehow figure out, is how to reduce that strain and make it easier so that it isn't as taxing. And maybe it is sort of just like a muscle that you work out, and it's just because it's new. Like the first time you do a super hardcore physical workout, you get muscle fatigue, right? So maybe something similar there is happening with the brain. I'm not sure. I'm just spitballing here, but
Yeah, no, it sounds like a. By the way, Cal is asking Laszlo, do you know AI Hightower?
no.
What is that, Cal?
Yeah,
Because
what is that?
Cal is also a data scientist, so I don't know. I'm not sure what he's referring to, but
Oh, okay. Oh, and I think he asked another question earlier. No, I have not seen the console either, Kel.
it was yeah.
Nor
That will
have,
be.
nor have I seen the code yet. But I'm still very intrigued and hoping to in the near future here. So we're going to continue with that.
I hope Laszlo recommends writing SV cheats 1 in the console. Everybody are so obsessed with the cheat codes. I mean, I never liked cheat codes, even in the games. I mean, come on, man, that's boring.
You want to right? I want to go through the
Just
the
God
mode
mode.
first. After you beat it, then you can go into cheat mode.
Yeah, first beat it.
Yeah.
Oh wait, Kirsten said something. She
Oh,
said,
Hightower Game Dev worked on VR early. Oh, Hightower Game. Okay, yeah, that does sound familiar. Worked on VR early. What is that? The name of the game, or is that the studio Hightower? Now I need to Google this. Because yeah, I come from I was an early adopter, so got started with Oculus pretty early on. So if you're involved if you've launched anything on Oculus, I've probably seen it.
So here's an interesting data point, by the way. So Kirsten's, she says that she also sees the console. Her console is a little different than mine from her description, but she's much more focused on kind of like the healing space, right? So she says, when I first started doing healing stuff with the molecule, I felt very tired afterwards as well. Oh, she's just referring to the being tired, not anymore though. So she learned. But she says that her console contains some kind of like almost like medical tools that she can pick up, and like it's hard for me to assimilate because mine looks very different from what she's describing. But it would make sense that if the console does show up for somebody, it would be probably catering to some tendency that they already have, so it would make some sense to kind of meet them halfway. Early on, she says on a tray.
Personal console.
And in a hologram. Yeah. Well, I guess we're gonna start developing tools to be able to try and figure these out. Again, when we have something kind of like, like you working with something that kind of basically competes with Neuralink, right? So when we have something like that can record directly from the cortex and project it onto a screen. I know they have something like that, like rudimentary, but that would be, that would be the holy grail for this study. If you can just directly record what people see through their eyes, and then you just put it through some kind of a chat GPT to analyze the code, there you have it. That's really the beginning of an actual figuring it out on a very, very concrete level. Let's see here. By the way, just to set aside some competition, but is there anything that truly makes Neuralink stand out in like, because they claim it's like about the number of connectivities in the brain or something like that. Is that true, or there are devices that other companies make that are they're very similar in the number of connectivities and in other attributes?
So I'm not super so how do I explain this? So I'm not super well versed in the actual, that's like the biosignals or like as far as like neuroscience. That's getting into that. So I know a bit about that because I work closely with those people. But just as a heads up, I'm more as a programmer. And again, so I have some limited knowledge into that, so I can sort of give you some answer from my perspective. But I would say that like Neuralink is definitely on the cutting edge. And I think their big advantage from my perspective is that, they're doing brain implants, and they have the robot basically that is a super advanced robot that's able to do a high precision surgery. And that's one of their big advantages right now, is literally the robot that can do the surgery, because it's able to do such high precision and implant those electrodes with such precision that they're able to kind of use that as their intellectual property. And that's one piece of it. There's several other pieces to it. I'm sure their software stack and the AI that they're using would be the other piece of it. So what's like reading the brain signals, so to speak. And I'm sure, again, because they have such resources invested in it, again, they're probably on the leading edge of that as well. So those are two big advantages right there. But there are other companies, definitely it's a competitive space. There are people that are competing in that space, but a lot of it is like, non-invasive. So like there's kind of two categories. There's invasive and non-invasive. So invasive is where they're actually doing a surgery and putting in a chip. Where non-invasive is just the idea is no surgery involved. You're just going to be wearing a headset or electrodes or wearing something on top of your scalp usually. And so those are the two big categories. And so, as far as Neuralink there, I would say, definitely the leader in the space, again, because of that robot and because of the advantages that I discussed.
Thank you, Kirsten. So, and just so I make sure that I understand that space correctly, magnetic stimulation, intracranial stimulation, or cranial stimulation is always going to be more limited, right? Because it's much more like a blunt tool. Like you can't pinpoint a specific enough of a function. Right. As much as an actual electrodes that go into your brain. Basically, that's the main difference, right? Even if we figure out the mapping.
As far as they've been able to do so far, although I've heard that there's some recent breakthroughs in that where they're finally getting that dialed in, supposedly. I don't know much about that, but apparently there's been a recent breakthrough in, the transcranial magnetic stimulation, where they're able to pinpoint it a bit more accurately or precisely than was previously thought. And that's as much as I know about that, but apparently, they broke some kind of boundary there, so there may be some potential there. I don't know how that interfaces with it, but there was a Tim Ferriss has been doing. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I think there was a couple podcasts him recently talking about it. He had it done on himself, and he was describing and actually, now that I think about it, reminds me very similar of what you were describing with that flick on the temple kind of feeling. Mm-hmm. He was describing the exact same thing during the stimulation.
Interesting.
That he received, and he was saying it's the most impactful, craziest therapeutic intervention that he's ever done. And
it sounds like something Tim Ferriss would say.
Yeah, it does, exactly. But at the same time, it's pretty interesting. So I want to know more about that.
No, he's awesome. I love him. So let's see. First of all, Cal is also asking you. So I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, just because you said you're not really as close to the brain stuff. But he's asking, do you think advanced EEG would be enough to see, read what we see? I feel like maybe it can show some potential changes, but I don't know if.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So EEG is sort of,
Thank you, Cheryl.
there's different resolutions that you can basically dial in. So you can, it depends on like how many sensors and the strength of them. There's a lot they're still learning and figuring out about that. But basically, it's the same thing as kind of like monitors. They're slowly increasing the resolution and the fidelity that EEG can capture. And so to answer your question, I don't know if that's a tough question to ask, but it's definitely something I'm interested in sort of looking into, is translating that EEG data into, you're probably, again, going back to what you were saying, Danny, that we definitely are going to need some sort of powerful AI to interpret the brain signals and give us like a picture. It's going to have to
So
recreate
they
it.
already have that. It's just in its infancy.
Yes.
Yeah, they have
Yeah,
that
yeah,
ad.
using fMRI and some other.
No,
Yeah.
no.
So
Well, maybe I'm not sure what they actually use. I think EEG, because it's more temporally. So the temporal dimensions, there's much higher fidelity. So I think it has to be EEG. I might be wrong. fMRI has too much of a. Wait, what is this? Okay, it gave me like a huge message. Huge. I don't know what this is. Okay. Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate you, brother. But they maybe you're talking about the same thing, and I'm completely wrong. I just don't know. I think it has to be either some form of EEG or whatever. But it basically recreated an actual image from somebody's brain. And this was
interesting.
it's been around for a while apparently. It's just that it was very, very kind of like staticky and noisy. And now there was some kind of a big breakthrough last year. But again, at this point, it's in time, it's very easy to verify these things. I should probably look into it, right?
Yeah, I've seen some of that. There's been some studies. I don't. Yeah, I'd have to read and see what's new, because it's always changing as well. But I know they're on the cusp of it, definitely. And yeah, I've seen some where they're successful, but it was like too expensive, or you have to use pretty large equipment or something cumbersome about it. But either way, yeah, it's they've done a proof of concept successfully. I know that in several cases, and that's, I mean, we're there. That means it's just a matter of
Just a matter of
getting,
time. Dialing it in,
getting
basically,
the
yeah.
technology cheaper and you know more advanced, which is happening quicker and quicker every day.
Also, the business, thank you for the donut. And he's saying, how about Wi-Fi routers using radio signals to see humans moving around in their homes? I mean, how about it? Isn't it awesome?
Yeah, you can triangulate stuff with Wi-Fi. That is,
Yeah.
they've already. I mean, that technology already exists.
Yeah, and again, I think my reaction to that, and I've spoke about this before, my feeling in general about what's his name? What's his name? The why am I spacing on his name right now? The guy who's rah-rahing big time about warning us about AI and all that stuff. What's his name?
Elon.
No, no, well, Elon too. Yeah,
He
yeah,
was
yeah.
doing. I was gonna say he was doing a campaign. That was like a couple years ago.
No, there's a guy who's not doing anything aside from talking about how dangerous it is.
Oh, the
Tristan
Fremont
Harris.
guy.
Tristan Harris. There you go.
Yes.
So that it came from a TED talk that Tristan did with another guy, and they were talking about this, and obviously they're presenting it as like be careful, people. My whole thing with him is like I'm confused about what he's doing, because it's like, well, are you offering a solution? Because it's not gonna stop. Who are you talking to? You talking to people to scare them? The same people that the best thing for them is to actually learn and assimilate these tools. Are you scaring them from ever trying to use these tools and therefore being completely left behind when the thing takes off? I don't understand what he's doing. And my take on all of these, not just that, but all of these like new, crazy, advanced ways to utilize these technologies that can, of course, be also used if you choose to either spy on you or do something negative. That's always the case with every technology. If you have a fully functioning Neuralink, yes, there's a possibility somebody can hack your brain. If you go into space, there's a good chance you'll blow up into smithereens. There's always something that will be part of that technology that will allow for some kind of a utility that is not favorable. I always think of it in terms of like, why do you think you matter so much? Like speaking obviously to all humans, including myself, it's like it's the idea of like, no, they want us this, they want us that. Why do you think that there's something you have that somebody wants? It's like it's almost like a self-importance kind of thing, right? It's like right now anybody can listen to you through your phone, like completely, even when it's off. They can triangulate, they can find you. If the government or anybody else really wants to find you or listen to you, they can. They don't need anything else. Just to be able to see you through the room, it's probably much easier to just, So the idea is that, like, well, there might be an overreach of something. Again, that's already the case. Like, worrying about these little things, to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But then again, I think I don't know. There's just so much out there that it's kind of hard to follow. And so being worried about new things when there's plenty of things that you can worry about already doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And do you have any insights?
We gave up our privacy when we adopted mobile phones, really. It's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah. On the other hand, you have more, and this is a line that a lot of people repeat, but it's true. Like, you have more information available to you now than the head of the CIA did 30 years ago.
Right.
So that's that's the other side of the scale.
It's a catch-22.
Yep. I'm here to give my support. Just not sure I can call it a simulation, maybe a dream. Thoughts? Thank you for that, Jamie. So first of all, always appreciate the support. Simulation is the word that fits the bill the most for me. I did have this conversation recently with somebody who the word simulation kind of bothers them. I can understand it to a degree because a lot of us have we assimilate the word simulation with fake, which makes it feel like, oh, we're not real or not as important. But simulation does not mean fake. It just means a computationally rendered environment. That's all it means. Now, I know that in our modern culture, we associate it with that because usually when we run a simulation, by definition, it's like a space that is not the real space. It's like a replica of the real space in which we're running it for whatever reason because we want to see what happens there. Like if we're running simulations with galaxies colliding or black holes or any other simulation, protein folding, like all kinds of things, right? So yes, by definition, you're making a replica in the computational space, and then you want to see what happens to it by running that program, kind of giving you the possibilities. The proposition is not that we're living inside of a computer, but that reality itself is what we call computational. So the elements of whatever computation allows for are the universal elements, and the laws of physics are just one tiny sliver of the totality of all renderings. So in that sense, you have a situation where simulation just is equal to a slice of reality. You can think of it like that. It's just that the word simulation immediately rings a bell. People know what it is. It's easier to talk about. But yeah, we probably can use a different word, maybe simulacrum. But simulacrum is almost the same thing. It's almost a distinction with no difference, and less people know what it is. So I feel like it's just there's too much explaining that is required just to get to the point of explaining what you mean by that. So I think for now I'm going to stick with simulation. A dream, you mean like we're all the dream of God? Sure, that works. That there's no real difference there, to be honest, because a dream essentially is a simulation of the brain, right? I think it's a matter of tone, like what tone people prefer to land on, and that's a matter of style. I have no problem with that. It just when people say dream, that actually makes it feel fake for me, because I associate dreams with not real. But see what I mean? So I guess we all have the word that makes us feel a certain thing. All is mental. We are in a dream within a dream. Yes. Which, by the way, there's a great film, Waking Life, which is awesome. It's exactly kind of around this idea. I'm trying to understand the difference between the guy's code and the ineffable symbols glyphs. Well, the only way to do that is to actually observe it, because then you can make a decision for yourself. I know a contractor who is involved with building Elon's XAI supercomputer in Memphis, Tennessee. That's amazing. You mean like he's building the business? The gossip he's heard is the supercomputer will be able to predict crime before it happens. Woo! Here we go.
The Minority Report.
Yep. Comprising reality. Link in the movie Minority. Yeah. There we go. Just don't make crimes, even in the future. Just don't do them. Jamie Darnell think of the symbols as self-executing code, not like source code needing processor. That's actually a really good way of putting it. I may change my mind the more we learn about it, though. Yeah. What's up, Tammy? Understand your passion now after watching console. Wow. Oh, thank you, Beth. I appreciate it. Yeah, the console is kind of wild. It is truly wild. The reason I wasn't talking about it for quite some time is because I lend very little credence to people's reports about things. So I don't know why anybody should take my report of something more seriously than anybody else's. But then people who knew about it told me, no, you got to talk about it. So I eventually succumbed to it, and I did. But I appreciate you appreciate it. The business almost like movie been desensitized us for the collective manifestation of them. Here's the thing. I thought about this a lot today and yesterday, and actually, well, quite a few times, but specifically yesterday and today. 11 in between 11. You know how we always talk about this difference between the perception of what spiritual people would have about what is happening, the ascending, the awakening, whatever it is, and then people are just kind of working on making technologies more and more advanced. And I keep saying I think it's the same thing. It just looked from two different angles. So here's a scenario for me that makes just as much sense from a perspective in which you want to be careful, okay? And you will see that actually there's just no way to know, and the only way to proceed is just through what it actually feels like in the moment. So you, for example, you're saying the movie desensitized us. It's almost like somebody put out these movies to kind of like show us all the crazy ideas, the scary ideas, so we get desensitized, so we don't, so we're not, so we kind of get caught with our pants around our ankles, not ready because we stopped looking because it got desensitized. Now, maybe you didn't mean that somebody planned it. Maybe you just meant that that's just the result of these movies being around, which would to some degree be true. But even if you didn't mean that, there's a lot of people that I hear kind of like speaking this speak with like, somebody's planning this whole thing. They're kind of trying to trick us, all that stuff, right? Here's a scenario for you, okay? If you would want the downfall of a civilization, what would be the first thing you would want to target in their operation? Their biggest strength, right? Now, how would you do that? First, you will identify it. Then you would not go about it. Well, one way to do it is just to basically blow the whole thing to smithereens and we're done, right? But that's not very subtle. And I would assume that a very advanced civilization would have much, much more clever ways. So how would you go about that? Well, what you would do is you would inject an idea into a society that feels really good. It feels really, really like kind of like wholesome and good. That idea is, hey, you've gone far enough. Slow down. It's okay. Just enjoy. Just sit by the fire, enjoy nature, enjoy animals. Don't worry about it. Hey, what is the thing that got us out of all the crazy trouble that we've been with the world since the beginning? Science. What does this idea tell you? Listen, science, it's not what you think it is. It's pretty bad if you let it run amok. It's dangerous. So this idea can be a version of an idea that is injected into society to infect most brains to stop trying to look for progress. And then you get caught off guard because you're not ready, because you're not working on the one thing that ever worked in the history of humanity, right? Now, I'm not saying that is the case. I'm saying, but here's a perfectly reasonable and rational scenario in which how an advanced civilization, what if they know that the only thing that stands between them taking over fully and us being taken over is us stopping trying to figure things out because we got so good at it. Maybe it's even, like threatening something in their society or whatever. Here's a scenario, okay? Just putting it out there. Makes just as much sense to me. So my point is that you can't really know, and it doesn't always help to kind of look at things through just how it feels. The truth is that a lot of things feel good, but when we look in the aggregate, when we look over time, all of a sudden we discover actually these things kind of run us into the ground, right? And I think this is why it's important to always keep both tracks going at all times and not worry so much about like who's trying to create a scheme or whatever. Let's just work on things that work. Let's solve problems. And if one of the problems is that, for example, humans get a little deranged when social media is allowing, teenage kids to engage with certain content that makes them want um, to do the unthinkable, which is definitely the case according to some studies. Okay, that is a problem to be solved. That does not mean technology is bad. It just means, okay, what regulations do we put in place? How do we address this? Right? Let's look at the situation in the face and let's acknowledge what's happening and how we go about it. And if the answer is we should inject certain ideas about spirituality and meditation into kindergarten, which some places are already doing, wonderful. Here's a wonderful meeting point where the beauty of what the contemplative and the spiritual world can offer is injected into a framework of a deeper understanding of what reality is doing, which includes human experience and how it's being modulated and what things influence it in what direction. So I always say, let's just look for solutions. And it's so clear to me that I took your comment and blew it up to something much, much bigger. I'm not really responding to your comment. It's just that it made me think of this kind of rhetoric, which people always have. I'm like, dude, this is it would be the perfect plan to tell humans, hey, just sing Kumbaya, don't worry about it. And that's why I stand on that. Let's see what else we got. Let's see how far I departed from what you said. Can it be green 5 milliwatts laser? Absolutely. It has to be 5 milliwatts and no more, no matter what the color of the laser. People have, you asking if that's yeah, the milliwatts is just at the output, is how much power it gives. People who have seen the code, has anyone noticed it while sober on any other substance? Yeah, you can see it on mushrooms, you can see it on Aya. I've never tried it with other things, but maybe it does. And some people report being able to see it even when they're not on the molecule. But because it's not as coherent as what you see on the molecule, it makes me think that it's possible that actually your brain might be filling it in because now it knows it's there. So I don't know, and we'll only know when we're going to start analyzing it from a much more concrete point of view. And 11 between 11 said, I've had the same thought. So there we go, we're on the same page. This is reminiscent of the Holographic Universe book. Which one? That would be interesting. Infiltrate the society of some generations of that society and deconstruct the power from the inside. Exactly. Because look at the narrative, right? The narrative is it's very gentle. It's very subtle, but it's there. With every utterance about the greatness of God and nature, there's a little hint of be careful, humans, you're playing with fire. Be careful. You know what I mean? It's such a subtle thing, but it's there. It's dude, technology is the only thing that ever got us out of basically everything. Now, did we get it perfect? Of course not. Are there big issues with certain kinds of technologies we make? Absolutely. But the solution is just better technology. And when I say technology, I mean any process or tool, including internal processing tools that you can devise to make things better. Understand what the world is doing, and then meet it halfway, and then do something with it. And this is something actually also we spoke today with Laszlo, which is that he's saying that a lot of the stuff that I was saying about this is obviously very, very, I'm just assuming all of this. I have no idea if this is the case. But I was telling him about this idea or impression that I have that I think that these beings and the laser we're looking at is actually dark matter, and they are dark matter. So the galaxy is their city. And I said that I think what they're doing is that they're running all these infinite simulations, and then they're borrowing a tiny portion of energy and computational power. So it's the perfect system. It's like the greenest system possible. They're utilizing free energy and free computation, and in return, they're giving universes lives. So they create universes in which beings can exist. And Laszlo was saying that actually this is a real talk that is now happening in the computational space. People are trying to figure out if they can use some of the happening inside of a game or a software.
In the world right now, or whoever kind of gets the most computational power right now could potentially get to the end of that finish line first. So it's definitely a competitive space, and so people are trying to figure out how to squeeze any extra computational power out of existing places that they can. And so, yeah, that's definitely a topic that's being discussed right now.
It's so fascinating if people manage to do that. It's crazy. I wonder how you would do it though. It's such a fun puzzle. How do you take
Yeah.
how do you take how do you take the actual occurrence inside of a that yeah, that's a really fun puzzle.
Right. Yeah, it's sort of like the recursive nature of it. It just sort of is really hard to wrap your brain around.
At this, I couldn't agree more. Nathan is asking saying at the shapes like parts of the toroid shape. Wait, what are you referring to? The reality of the mole is that it's in everything on Earth. I'm not sure I'm fully reading the content all the way through. I haven't tried it with the molecule yet, but I tried with a few beers and it didn't see any code. Yeah, I doubt you can see it with a beer, but hey, 2D
Every
slice.
experiment has its place.
Yeah, I mean, Irish people, I bet you, will definitely experiment with some beers. 2D slices perspectives of the ideal field, tidal field. Nathan, I know you probably don't mean it that way, but it's a little cryptic for me. I'm not sure if you can just maybe expand a little bit. And Cheryl Thompson saying your background. You asking me? Toroidal. The Holographic Universe by Talbot. Oh, okay. That book. Yeah, I mean that book involves a lot of hearsay. That's like I read that book. It's interesting. The holographic principles, like it's much, it's an actual framework in physics. Hey, baby, actual framework in physics. So it's much more rigorous than what that book presents. But I've read the book. There are some interesting things there. My only thing with it is that no, you should probably take them in about 30 minutes. Is that sometimes there has like for example there's a story in the book about this monk or somebody who was like in the forest and all of a sudden he saw that something was, I forget what it was now, but like either trees or people, somebody, it's just like people, either people or trees, something like appear and disappear, and it just tells you the story and that's it. It's like, okay, like no details, no like it sounds like this is a big claim, I would expect to have a little bit more detail on it. So that's what makes me a little suspicious of the way, the spirit with which this book was written. What's up, Kane? Good to see you. Amazing Amalia, good to see you. Wouldn't Nvidia just win by default because they are always using the next faster processor? That's a question for you probably, Laszlo. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a question that's probably going to be debated in Congress, like with monopoly law coming into place. Yeah, I don't know a lot about the hardware side of it. It's sort of a very complex topic, but it's there's definitely like regulation and legislature being looked at to try to figure that out, because right now, I mean, pretty much Nvidia's positioned themselves to monopolize, and there doesn't really I don't seem to be any real foreseeable competition. But I think, I don't know. It's a complex topic, but I know that the U.S. definitely is, looking at potentially giving themselves any advantage that they can to secure those. Because I believe they've banned China from even using those chips.
Wait, really? Why?
For competitive reasons, I believe.
Oh, because they're making it. Also, I wonder if their CEO showers with that leather jacket.
That kind of looks like it, doesn't
He just wears it everywhere all the time. Well, I'm just watching the same video over and over again.
No, I think there's a lot of those kind of, I don't know, successful tech billionaires that tend to like do the same outfit thing, like Zuckerberg's done.
Oh yeah, so his whole closet is just these jackets.
Yeah,
It makes sense.
So I think it's kind of a thing.
It's
I
a
think was it Steve Jobs started it, I believe.
yeah. He had like
Remember
one
correctly.
one the same sweater.
The idea is that when you've got so many complex decisions in your life that you want to take out clothing and what to wear the next day out of the picture as a variable. So you just
I'm
I do
very
the
much
same thing.
very
One
much on
less thing
board.
I have to figure out every day.
I'm very much on board. This is the biggest pain in the ass. Just
Kind of
like
a
wake up
minimalist.
every day. I have like 4 or 5 shirts that I'm circulating. I think people already in the chat noticed. I'm like, people tell me like, you need a new wardrobe. Like, dude, I don't feel like I got all these decisions.
I think
Um,
that you trend that direction the older you get, just in general.
this is like I care less. So I get Cheryl Thompson, some understanding of physics, and I don't know, like I don't know if I would call it a background, but v- throughout my life I read very extensively throughout the entire kind of like philosophy space. I wouldn't call it my background. It's just interests. But physics, I was studying originally to become an astrophysicist. That was the goal. And then I realized that the actual answer is more in the very small, but that interested me a lot less. And then actually some other life decisions made me take a completely different direction. So, but that's like a very in general. I think nowadays, and this is not a dodge, this is like a true insight that I had later in life, is that nowadays, because I do have good friends that are both in academia and in the technical world, and even occupy pretty high level positions, and I see how the sausage is made, and I'm actually super happy that I'm not in academia. That I'm watching how it unfolds, and it's just painful to watch sometimes. When again, it's security, it's fun, you're just kind of like there and doing your thing. But on the other hand, you're so dependent on some political tides, and like you can't say the wrong thing, otherwise you will never get funding again. Like things like that. That's like, dude, that's like you studied for with postdoc, what, close to 8 9 years, right? And like depending on what it is, but and then all of a sudden to have the whole thing fall apart because you said the wrong thing. Oh my god, that's crazy. And yeah, you get access to the entire machinery, and to, again, it's really, but I think that I'm very happy with especially now that with some curiosity, ChatGPT and Google, like truly, I'm not exaggerating, within a year you can teach yourself basically anything, and it's gonna have a much sharper um, edge than anything you can study in university, because in university they kind of give you like a thing in bulk, and then yeah, you can specialize, but even there, then you become so specialized that you basically just do this and you put blinkers on. And like very often I would ask, like I was talking to Melvin the other day, the physicist, and he came from condensed matter originally, and now he's working on informational physics. And I asked him some general question in something about they were doing in CERN about boson pair production or something like that, about the particular production of certain kind of bosons. And he's like, I have no idea. I was like, you don't know? I was like, I have no idea. That's not my side of the field. So literally, you just kind of find yourself in this tiny bunker where you're really good and you really understand this stuff because you have to be, right? But that's all you know, and that's your world, because that's your world. And I would never want to be in that position. I'm so happy that I'm kind of like I get to flow free and say whatever, and the beauty of it is that anybody can now, if you have something of true value, you can get very smart people interested. So you don't need to go to school for 10 years for this and 10 years for that. You can just get the right minds interested, and if something is of merit, they'll get on board, and they'll bring their set of expertise. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about the times that we're living in.
I totally agree. Absolutely agree. Most of my knowledge and experience mostly self-taught, which I kind of took a different path than most people in my field, and it's given me a different perspective, which may be another reason why we've synced up. But yeah, definitely. I don't know. Didn't really school in the traditional kind of educational path just didn't appeal to me, and I was able to just find, once you're passionate about something and look into it on your own, you're a lot more apt to learn it and really grok it, really understand it, right? And so I took that on board super early. But now with like AI, man, 100% agree with what you said there. It's you can really teach yourself anything. I can't even imagine what like the new generation, what education is going to look like.
It's crazy.
I mean, like for us, it was amazing because we had, I came from the days of library and having to walk, however long in a physical space to go to a book, a library to get a book and learn it that way, and then seeing the internet come online, and how just having that amount of information at your fingertips has changed things. Well, now AI has just done that again in a whole other order of magnitude, basically. So it's super interesting. I have a couple questions that just popped in my mind about the code.
Sure.
I want to ask you, Danny.
Sure. And then YouTube, by the way, right after that, I'll address all the questions here. I'm not ignoring you. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah. So like you had mentioned, so if you move the laser, the code doesn't move. Like it's kind of like a flashlight, like you're revealing.
It's moving, but on its own, like on its own
I
coordinates.
totally understand that. But on the flip side, if the object that you're shining the light on moves, so let's say you move, like you had mentioned, you shine it on your skin, and you can see the code on your skin, right? So if you're moving your arm, does that affect does the code move? Does it track with the object, or is it just
Yeah. No, it's making, as far as you can tell, it's doing all the right things to be just the object. So it's like the code is making the object. So if the object moves, the code,
is wrapping around. So if you move your arm, the code moves with your arm.
Yeah.
Okay, that's.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's not like, I see what you're asking. So like, is there like a third canvas basically? Is there like a code and a surface and a laser? I'm saying no, there's just the surfaces, and the surfaces are the code, but it's also the air and everywhere. And the laser just reveals it wherever it is.
Because the way I kind of understand it from like development in 3D, the way that tracks in my mind is almost like, in 3D modeling or simulations, there's like a mesh. You have like a group of polygons, which makes like a 3D model, right? Like let's say like a cube has 6 faces, right? And so and then there's so that's the mesh, that's the model, the geometry, so to speak. But then like on top of that, you've got a texture that's giving like the material. And that texture controls like lighting, specularity. It looks like what the color of the object is. It handles the texture of it, the roughness, whether it's smooth, whether it's reflective, things of that nature. So basically, the texture sort of defines how the light interacts with the geometry.
I see what you're asking. Okay, so you basically, that is an interesting point of view. I haven't thought of that, because in the way we do it, as the code is just a very high level representation of a set of commands that we give a computer to render something, and then that something doesn't contain the representation of the code. Yeah, but that something does not contain the representation of the visual of the symbols of the code. It only contains the actual output of whatever the computer was instructed to present, right?
Yep.
Right. So I think that the difference here, I spoke about it a little bit yesterday. I think that this code is so sophisticated. First of all, I think it has these like nodes that it exists on that are responsible for tiny units of what I call inness. It's the property of like pointing inwards. And then you have enough of these, you start developing awareness, because there's the difference between in and out, okay? And then the code is so sophisticated that the symbolic representation of the code actually codes for a function just by its own presence in the mesh. So it's almost like you code into the mesh, so to speak.
This is exactly what I was getting at. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Love it. So it's almost like a different programming paradigm in a way, as if I want to frame it that way. It's sort of like, if I could rephrase it, as the code is written into the texture, the geometry in the mesh, rather than like as a separate script.
Yep.
It's part of
that's exactly right. And actually you can
interesting to think about.
And you can think of quantum fields as these meshes. So you have you have a bunch of meshes, and each mesh is responsible for a different functionality. And into it, you can inject the code and tell it what to do in a particular way, and it would do it. And if you tell it something else, it would do something else. But each mesh specializes in a particular set of functions that get then, so not the whole thing, so they kind of held together like a mesh. Like they're also like literally together, like kind of held together.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, and this is something that, so to you, you're probably very familiar with this kind of stuff, but just to tell people, so there are symbols that, I forget the actual names for it, but there are symbols that point to something else. A language is like that, right? A letter points to a sound, or to a sets of sounds. Words point to what we say, the way it sounds, right? And then it's attached to some kind of a meaning tapestry associated with concepts and blah, 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 we go. There are symbols, however, that point to themselves. So, for example, a triangle is a symbol, but it's also encapsulates a set of relationships, 180 degrees, like all the relationships that triangle exist, like the things that triangles are known for, the different kinds of triangles. So the functionality of a triangle contains all the truth about itself, so to speak. So it represents itself, a square, like things like that, right? So what is possible is that you create these meshes that are specializing in taking orders from particular types of shapes, but these shapes are also designed so conscious beings can read them. So at the same time, conscious beings can read them, and the existence of them, so their aesthetic, their dimensions, their shapes represent something, just like this triangle represents something about itself. And this is what I was talking about yesterday, that it makes perfect sense to me. There was this article circulating in Reddit where they supposedly found this craft that was worked on in somewhere in the Bay Area, and it had, like, they recovered some parts of it, and it had symbols on it that are very similar to what we see in the laser. Now, I don't know if this story is fake or not. I have no idea. That's not what I'm talking about right now. It makes perfect sense to me, however, that it's possible that you have a craft, and maybe this is why if the US government was working on these things, it had such a hard time figuring it out, because who would think of that, right? It's very possible that you can present the exact same conditions. You put it in a particular field, you then create a certain frequency, and nothing happens. But if you present these symbols and you literally even put it with a Sharpie on the craft, maybe it matters what material you paint them on, in a particular sequence, in a particular size, in a particular place of the craft, all of a sudden it activates that function inside the field. And now, if you're going to do the exact same thing, it's going to lift off. So it makes perfect sense to me that the code literally codes for functionality, even in the way that it appears, not just to, high level, what are they called? Command engines, or whatever they're called, all the way through compilers, all the way to machine code. Like, aside from that little hierarchy, it actually codes for the functionality of itself in the space that it was designed to code for. Yeah.
It's almost like the functionality is like self-evident inside of the.
It makes it so to the field, yeah, basically. Perspective of doing. Sorry, go ahead.
That's very, I don't know. That's very interesting. That sounds like a new programming paradigm.
It's yeah. I think that's really what that's the level of sophistication we're talking about here, like technologically. So in that sense, what I'm seeing is that the code literally codes for everything, including its own appearance, including what kind of things can potentially arise in that particular space, in what order, in what time, and then according to some conscious observations, the code is almost reflected to itself, and it gives rise to the next logical conclusion of sets of possible states that then give rise to the next step in the evolution of the branching out of the tree, of the graph tree.
It's like the unfolding.
Yeah. Something. Oh, whoa. There's so many. Hold on. Anyone notice animals are affected around you while you're on that space? Absolutely. And you said, and business said, yeah, my dog does. When I smoke, our dog, our husky, it takes a little longer, like 30 minutes, and then she literally springs into life. She's just like, whoa, and she's like, all right, let's go, and she's just like ready to explore. So I'm pretty sure that it influences dogs differently. Their onset is much longer, but it lasts for much longer. But she's definitely on it. She's definitely like, she loves it. She's just like, we go outside and she's like, oh my god, bushes, it's crazy.
The animals definitely seem to have like some sort of, I don't know, intuitive sensory. They can pick up on that, your emotional state, or especially when there's psychedelics involved. I've heard so many stories from friends and experienced stuff myself where just animals just start acting weird and doing strange things. It's definitely a thing, right?
Oh man. Everybody excuse me, you're gonna be 10 seconds in silence. I gotta go pee. I'll be right back. I don't know, maybe.
I would sing or do something entertaining, but I'd rather not. I don't have those type of abilities. Sorry, folks. He says, "Go for it, try." Oh no.
The what?
I said I would sing or tell a joke or do something, but I don't have those type of. I wouldn't put those people through that type of torment.
Wait, what? Put what to a joke?
No, I was just gonna try to fill the space. I said I would sing, but I wouldn't.
Oh,
put
you
those
should
people-
have. That would be,
I
and then we
definitely
can.
can't
And,
sing,
and
though.
by the way, this is maybe how you discover your singing career. Maybe if we have like a giant uptake and people like, oh my god,
Do an amazing
this
opera,
shit
let
just
me
gets
tell
so
you.
much better. Um, and then Danny was saying from before, cheat. Oh, what happened? Oh, it presented. What is? Oh, this is so cool. So I can present the comments. I didn't know this. So I basically.
Wait, what?
So
Yeah,
on
I'm
you.
new to TikTok too. I'm a complete noob.
No,
here,
it's not on
so-
TikTok, it's on YouTube. So do you guys see the comments right now on YouTube? When I click on this, do you guys see the message? Because I think what happens is that I click on somebody's comment and then it appears on the main screen. I wonder if they can see it too. Cheating can be done in a subtle way too. A little no clip here and there, next to banks, nothing radical. But the characters in the computer game not see the code that runs them. I think we went through all of this basically right now. It is a mystery. What is the code for it? Yeah, that is a huge mystery. You assume it is code that runs a reality. Yes, that's what I assume. Well, check out the Deadpool game. There's the fourth wall breaking in that on almost every corner. I think it's a... Yeah, I feel like... I think it's just a Ryan Reynolds thing. He really loves the breaking of the fourth wall, basically in a lot of his movies. But your assumption may be not correct at all. That is always the case, Mr. Z. That is the principle out of which I'm operating every single moment of my day. It could be a message or music. That would be beautiful if it's music. In that, the character not only points to the fact that he is coded and it is a game, but also there are gags in it that... Wait. In that the devs ran out of money, some levels of... Okay. I'm not convinced at all that the code is a computational code and not, for instance, a letter or a poem or telegrams. There are hieroglyphs on the walls of pyramid chambers, but they are not computational code. So what you're seeing is the much, much larger structures. If you look closer, I don't know if you're talking about doing the experiment in the way that I'm proposing. If you're talking about it in any other way, I can't comment on that. I don't know. I can tell you though, with the laser and the molecule, everything you just described will be made out of these code. So they're actually making the structures appear. That idea is religion. Just because a string of letters or digits runs about does not equate to computational code. Yes, it does not mean it by itself. I can just tell you directly from communication from, I guess, what you would call the simulators. I asked, they answered very directly. So that's why I know. That's why I know it's not like a guesswork for me, or at least to the extent that if I can say anything with any amount of confidence, is that I know for a fact that somebody is out there for real, that is not us. Sorry to disappoint all the people that think that it's our higher self, but my experience of it is that this is not us. They're very alien to us, and they're actually talking to us, and we're about to find out. With or without the laser. No, believe me, I don't jump to conclusions. Everything that I'm talking about publicly, with a certain amount of certainty, Mr. Z, just so you know, already went through a very, very, very stringent filter of mine for quite a few years. So I don't speak about something with confidence until I'm absolutely certain of it, to the extent that a human being can be certain about something. And then I can talk about why. But I'm the last person that jumps to conclusions. There was recently discovered that there is a worship gene, that our DNA, that make worship things outside of us instead of within. Yeah, I've heard of this. I don't know if it proves anything, because if the worship gene exists, it does not preclude the fact that there's something there that actually put that gene there for us to worship it, you know? So it still holds. I'm not saying either way. I'm just saying that logically it doesn't necessarily mean either thing. Greetings and good vibes to you all. Thank you so much. Poor Muse to you too. Can't I blah 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 yada yada? I mean yada yada yada. But it does not equal to computational code for anything, right? Well, I feel like you're on the same hobby horse. I'm not sure if I answered any of your questions with our conversation with Laszlo. Thank you so much, Poor Muse. What you're typing is computational. How are you? No, a string of words is not equal to a computational code. So, Mr. Z, I think, and this is not an insult, and we have an expert here, so he can correct. Laszlo, pay attention, and if I'm misrepresenting this, jump in, correct me, please. So, it feels to me, and I'm not trying to insult you at all. It feels to me like your understanding of what computational means is a little limited. Computational does not mean just computational code. Computational code is just a set of instructions that we put into a very long chain of things that exist inside of the computer that eventually ends up translating what we asked it to do into the wiggle of logic gates, which essentially is where it becomes binary, right? 001, 00001, which is how you talk to the machine. But the fact that it is possible to do this, the fact that you can actually create some kind of a wiggle in a physical substrate of some sort that will then give some kind of an output on the other end of it, that function is not arising from any law of physics. It's just there. You can technically compute with the waves in the ocean. It's going to take forever. Okay, so when you're doing it with logic gates, which is essentially just like little electric switches that goes on off, and there's like rows of them, which is how the the computer understands things. So what is meant by computation is not the fact that if you have a set of words, which by the way, spoken language, you can think of it a little bit like a computational way of conveying meaning from one person to another. Because what is really happening is that I have some kind of a meaningful thing I want to say inside. Then somehow in a magical way, my brain makes that into mouth movements that create very, very particular pressure waves in the air that then somebody else's ear picks up on. It's being translated through their machinery, and then it tries to decipher the meaning. So in that sense, it is somewhat of a computational language. It's just it's much more loose, and obviously we don't understand how all of this works at the moment. But any set of commands that gives some kind of an output or a transcription of meaning from one part of existence to another part of existence, you also have to postulate like something that can actually compute it, which is a whole other set of complication because you have to explain what that means. But let's just set that aside for a second. But that is what is meant by computation as a whole. It's a broad spectrum term, the ultimate version of which is what Turing discovered, which is that the universality of computation. He discovered that computation is a universal thing, which means that you can basically do it on any substrate. It's just a matter of speed and fidelity. And if something is what's called Turing complete, it means it follows what a Turing machine can do, which essentially is a hypothetical computational apparatus, you can call it. And the postulation is that you have some kind of a tape or something, and you have this one machine that kind of goes over that tape and just codes for on or off in a particular sequence, and each step that it takes, that step also tells it where to go next. And just by that logic alone, this is why it's called Turing complete, because if something is a full Turing machine, which at the moment, as far as I know, we don't have a full Turing machine, right? But like the brain seems to be Turing complete. It means that it can technically simulate anything possible. And then you have another layer on top of that, which is a quantum Turing machine, which is a whole, because it uses quantum logic and not binary logic, because it's qubits that can occupy multiple states at once. But the largest point, I hope I'm not confusing you, is that what is meant by computation is not just writing a set of instructions and then having it, deciding if it's a computer language or not a computer language. Computation is a broad blanket thing. Not computers are just a tiny. It's how we found in our current state of technology development to instantiate computation in physical matter and do something with it. That's what computers are. But computation is a much broader thing. How many things I got wrong, Laszlo?
Man, this is why you're awesome, Danny. I think you explained that better than even I could.
Wow, that's a huge compliment.
Everything that you say there, so you're spot on.
Thank you. So there you have it, Mr. Z. And again, this is to not for 1 second to discourage you to ask any questions. Please ask if anything was not clear. The last thing I want to do is, suppress your thought process. I want to make sure that
I think maybe the point, it does raise a good question though. Like what is the code saying? Maybe his kind of point is like maybe it's a book, maybe it's a sci-fi novel. I mean, we don't know what it actually could translate to, right? But it sounds like you've got from other evidence and other things that you've looked at that have given you more insight to that this is actually code, so to speak, and that's why you use that as a very distinct term.
It's a useful fiction for now. I mean, obviously, the ultimate thing we have no idea what it is, right? And
Right.
to be honest with you, with their sense of humor, which is sometimes very edgy, I wouldn't be surprised if eventually we go through like 20 years of trying to figure out what it says, and we discover that it just says blah 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 blah. Try again.
It's more profound than that. Oh man, the irony.
This sounds like something that Douglas Adams would write in.
Right.
Okay, let's see. I think this is all part of the continuation of the argument. You said not us. Remember the non-dual thing from yesterday. Non-dual refers to not to. How do we bridge this? I'm not sure that non-dual is as fundamental as people think it is. That will be my short answer. What are you talking about is assembler code. Who is reading that code? We do see it in our daily life. We see objects without seeing the code, right? In daily life. So I agree. That's a really good point. But this is why it is. I would admit it's bizarre. It's not a way in which we code things. Like for example, in the game The Sims. There is no reason if the people in Sims are conscious, the way we write the program, they have no reason to see the code from the inside of Sims. So I agree with you that this is strange, but I think that this is why this code is different because of everything I just said, which is I think the way it's instantiated in a particular environment is the thing that gives the command. So you're not just putting it into a prompt, it literally is. By its existence in that space in a particular order, it gives the command of what to do. Now, do I know this to be a fact? Of course not. This is the best, heuristic I found to talk about it, but who knows? The only way to know is to actually find out, right? That's really the ultimate truth there. Let's see what we got here. All right. Happiest time in my life was when I looked at every individual with complete love and compassion. I love that turn. Yep, I mean that definitely tracks. Oh, James wants to come on. I'm just now seeing it. Wait, yeah, there you go. Welcome, James. How are you, brother?
Hey, Danny, good to see you, man. I'm doing well.
And by the way, to your question, because I'm just reading it, yes, I do think that the field can be pure consciousness.
Oh, yeah.
Continue. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I mean, that's all I really...
Oh,
I think
well, hang out.
With breath work and deep meditation, I think I can see the field. And I've been practicing like weird things with a crystal and sunlight and mist and a copper woven toroidal field. Mm-hmm. With the crystal in the center connected to the earth with the sun going through it and a mist. I can start to see the rainbow coming through the mist, like in that all the moving particles. I can start seeing the field that I can see in deep meditation with breath work.
Okay, so first of all, I guess to take your question at the highest level I can, I do think that people gain more and more of these abilities as we progress into the space, even without any molecules. I do know that probably naturally we can do a lot of this stuff. I'm not sure all of it, but this actually ties nicely to what you were asking about, Mr. Z, which I think is a valid point. You're saying that we don't see it on a day to day. I think that what the molecule allows for is basically more of rendering steps in any given moment of perception. So like you're aware of more rendering steps or more frames per second of reality itself, that it becomes available to you, and this is why you can see the code all of a sudden versus not seeing the code before. And I do think that certain people, because of whatever they did in their life, either because they're more predisposed or because they practice certain things about their perception, they can amp up the frames per second naturally, so to speak. And this is why it's possible, James, that people like you are seeing a lot of this stuff more naturally. I have to be honest, if I would have this conversation with anybody that said what you just said about 5 years ago, we'd still be friends and all, but like I wouldn't believe you. I'd be like, oh, you're confused, and that would be my position, right? Because I wasn't aware, never had experience of these things. I mean, obviously, I know that on the molecule you can see a lot of things, but that proves nothing, right? It's like, well, I don't know, it's some kind of a substance. So this is why I'm very, very familiar with the skeptic attitude towards it, because I occupied one for a long time. But now I know for a fact that something is A, there, and B, I met quite a few individuals at this point, just like yourself, that see certain things, feel certain things, can make certain things come about in a way that previously I would completely dismiss, and I was proven wrong. I've been shown, I've felt, I know, and I know it's only going to get wilder and wilder.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm glad to be here on Earth right now. I think it's a magical time.
I couldn't agree more. That and then Amazing Mel is saying, that being said, I went through a traumatic event that altered my experience entirely. I'm sorry to hear that, but on the other hand, it sounds like it landed you in a better place. So I'm kind of glad that you went through that period in your life and it's no longer there. This brings McKenna's "the world is made of words, little meaning." Yeah, Terence McKenna used to say that the world is made out of language, and then he would always emphasize that he doesn't mean that as metaphorically, like he means literally the world is made out of language. And I think that is absolutely true.
First was the word.
The first was the word, exactly. Can the code... So, go ahead.
Just on that point, really, word is the first physical manifestation of thought.
Say it again.
Word is the first physical manifestation of thought.
Interesting. I like that. Yeah, it's the first instantiation in matter. You're right. Unless you write it. But yeah.
Right.
It's the first like direct. Yeah, like you could do something, manipulate something with your hands, I guess. But like, I don't know, for some reason, sound seems more direct almost because you're, I don't know, maybe because you're directly manipulating energy or something.
And it comes just right from your thoughts. When you're speaking, you're thinking at the same time. Like in a lot of practices that I have, I speak to make sure that my thoughts are coming from my head. They're coming out of me into reality. So that my mind then, it's like I'm practicing right now, that my mind is in this space where I'm creating thought. And that is where my thought is coming out of my mouth and hitting the world in whatever way that we can impact it. And then we get to use our amazing bodies as well as our creative conscious beings.
Yeah, language is interesting that way because also like it's sort of going back to your point earlier about the Neuralink thing, Danny, with moving the cursor with your mind and having to focus on moving your arm to do that. Like you said, that's sort of an unnecessary step. I think it's sort of maybe the same way with language, right? Like we don't think about how to pronounce a word, we just say it, right? We've gotten to that point where it's, what do they call it? Unconscious competence, I think is a term I've heard used for it, where you practice something so much where it just becomes automatic, right? And then you're able to sort of just do it at will. Language is obviously one of those things. Not sure where I was going with that, but I think that's just, sort of an interesting aspect of it.
That should be that's my middle name. Not sure where I was going with this. Um,
Love it.
and by the way, can the code show next week's winning lottery numbers? Absolutely. Are you guys writing down? I'm gonna do it every
They're
week.
in there.
It's
You just have to decipher it.
yeah, 6, 13. The extra number is always 42, just so you guys know.
Should be.
37, 8, 2. Did I get all the right numbers?
I
If
don't
this
know how many
one,
digits are in there, but if you got that right, that's going to be incredible.
dude, if I got it right, I won royalties, something.
You might come
Um,
back here and tip. You win.
actually, to what you guys were saying about, I actually think this is very, very profound. I think you're exactly right, James. I think that the reason for that is because, so visual field, still the interaction with the cornea is such that we don't really feel the touch of it. It's more just signal to meaning, right? But with sound, it's already it's a big enough object, the pressure waves, that it's a textual, an actual thing. It's tangible, right? So I think because we process meaning in our bodies, that's a thing that touches on your meaning machinery directly versus through another layer. So I think that the second voice and this is why I think music is so impactful, because there's nothing to circumvent. It's just direct. It's just like boom, it just impacts your body. You just feel it, even though it mostly impacts your ear, obviously. But like, bass we can feel in our bodies. That's not the thing you pick up with your ears, right? And then there's all these frequencies that basically literally go through your body, and I think that's why it's so impactful.
Yes, I think music
Absolutely.
is so powerful.
There's something about music that is very special like that. It just like puts you there. It's crazy. It's probably the closest thing to magic I think that we have in in the way that we do things, at least in this layer of reality. Truly.
Do you play anything?
No, I wish. This is also why I find it so magical. I think maybe some of the magic is maybe a little gone when you really know how to do it. And I'm always surrounded by a lot of my friends are like just like, A-listers, just like mind-blowing musicians. And every time I'm watching them do what they do, I'm like, dude, this is the fact that a human can do this. It's just like, wow. Wow. Was it James? Okay, hold on. I think people on YouTube are trying to follow what you guys are saying and who's saying what. Not that molecule. Mr. Z, have you experienced this molecule? No, not that molecule. Oh, so I think that answers everything, Mr. Z. And I haven't looked at the comments below, but truly, and again, I'm not, advertising I'm not suggesting to use it, but I think that's the distance. Because if you ever try the molecule once, first of all, a lot of the stuff that you think you know will just fall apart, because truly it's like, it's mind-boggling all by itself without even any lasers, because you can't believe that what you're experiencing or what you're seeing, you had no idea that your brain is capable of that. I promise you. There's nothing that you can pull in anything, including, by the way, meditative states and all that stuff. None of this can produce that. It doesn't mean that there are no states that you can maybe get higher in the frequency or whatever, but it's that particular function is so bizarre. It's not even about like high in frequency. It's so bizarre and alien and strange that a lot of the preconceived notions just like completely fall apart. And by the way, if any, what did you say, James? No, go ahead.
I was just wondering if you were talking about ingesting like the molecule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he said he never used it. High amount of an endogenous molecule that is produced just like other neurotransmitters allow us to see the code and other things the brain. I will be honest. I am a little agnostic about this. I'm not so sure. There might be limits to what the human mind can do by itself. Maybe I'm wrong, but something tells me that some of the higher states on the molecule, I don't know. I don't know if you can do it ever with breath work. I don't know if you not that. And the thing is that I've spoken to some breath work, practitioners and people who teach it. And when pressed on this point, because they do advertise it as that sometimes, right? Like release of the molecule naturally, all that stuff, right? If you ask them more precisely, it's like, wait, do you get to like the ones that also tried the molecule, yeah? and then you ask them like, wait, does it actually produce the full on, the whole gamut, the spectrum of the, pyrotechnics? And they would always admit, like, well, not the whole thing. Okay, so it's not exactly no. Like, so I don't think it might be the case that you can't actually get there without the molecule on particular things.
I really want to try it.
Oh, okay, yeah. So if you, yeah, it's and one thing I would always say to anybody who's never done and wants to try it, just prepare to be really surprised, because nothing can prepare you for it, and it's not an exaggeration. I'm not exaggerating. It's not a hyperbolic statement. It is as vanilla statement as you can make about it. It's no matter how much you heard about it, read about it, watched things about it. The second you go in, the first thought is like, what? It's like you did not expect that, no matter what you thought it was. Things speed up, also mild amounts. Yep, non-duality is not fundamental. He said, amazing. I will send that clip to Mr. Newman if you give him permission. He is telling that viewpoint as a fundamental and only way since several years. I mean, sure. I mean, people are convinced of this. And again, as a long time meditator, I know the kinds of things that people say about it, right? And I've experienced some of these like other states. It just feels to me like it's a different project, I'll be honest. And of course it's somehow related because it's part of reality altogether. But I am of the opinion that there's a good chance that the Buddha couldn't have known the whole thing. And what he discovered was limited to the time in which he appeared, which would make much more sense. Let's see. There was not, he might have, who knows, he might have been right that following the content doesn't matter at the end. So kind of like that, I do feel the echoes of that when I'm in deep meditative states, and there's like a recognition that ultimately all that matters is where I am right now, this second. So I think there's definitely truth to that, and probably is the universal truth. But in the moment, at least in the moment of development that we are, why not engage with the game in the best way that we possibly can? Well, creative frequencies, completely agree with you. Theory on thought. Yeah, was it James? I don't know. Certain musical notes and harmonies, harmonic chords can actually heal the body. I know that. I can tell you that from experience, by the way. You think you're going to find the answers, and all it does is open a whole new can of worms. Why can of worms? Why not can of fun puzzles? Not everybody suffers from thinking all the time. Like sometimes puzzles are fun. Not gonna lie, the ads on YouTube make me want to move over to. Oh, sorry about that. I might make it less. So that's a good input, Spore Muse. Thank you for that. I might either remove them or make them less frequent. I'm capable of doing that. Thank you for the feedback. That's important. If you want to slow ease into it, it would use a cartridge. Cartridge always, I would say in the beginning. Maybe you need maybe you need a prescription for eyeglasses because you misread letters sometimes. Oh, I'm dyslexic. Yeah, I have severe dyslexia, just so you know. You need reading glasses. No, I'm 20/20, but I'm severe dyslexia. Worms can be fun. Worms are fun. Can you explain your experience with healing and frequencies? When was the last time you had eye check? Not long ago, but I assure you, because I can read signs from distances that most people can't. I don't know why that is, but it was always the case. Can you explain your experience with healing and frequencies? I don't know if it's that interesting. It's just that, I had an experience in which I have a friend, Ireless, who you can find her on Spotify, but she's an incredible musician. Ireless is very difficult to spell, and with my dyslexia, it's even harder. Let me see if I can nail it. I think it's like this. But if you just type this into Spotify, you'll see what I mean. And she is definitely like tuned in to something higher for sure. And she's basically a full life fairy, like straight up. And she's a classical pianist by trained, but she does like this like very very flowy kind of music, fairy music. So she's literally a fairy from Norway. If Ireless is here, so shout out to Ireless. But when I listen to her music, very often I would feel like a shift in my state, and in like how I perceive things. It's a little psychedelic for me. So yeah, I will even actually type it in here too in case people want to check it out. She's incredible. Comments. IRLS. I hope I spelled it right. Whip. I think it's like this. Yeah, I hope so. Google will correct you. There's only one IRLS, I think. She gained a follower. Awesome. Yeah, she truly is incredible. IRLS. I typed it in. Oh, this is from before. I love that you. By the way, Mr. Z, I love that your comment to everything I said was, "Are you blind?" It's awesome. I just don't want to be judgmental. Be judgmental. It's fun. We can be judgmental here and there. Manifesting is like spoken manipulation of energy. I can get behind that. Does this time mean that we're at the sign of the times? Wait, I think I want to go back. Aaron, how you doing, brother? I'm going to send him an invite just in case. There's no way he's going to come on. He doesn't like to come on. But in case you want to come on, please come on. Let's see. Whoa, there's a lot of comments here. Like peeking into a future reality, objectives seem to compose the code glyphs. You think the code is in this real time? That's a great question. I don't know. I have no idea. That's a great question. I think the Jester may pull pranks outside of its space. Dude, how many comments have I missed? Like 1,000? Let's see. Love the conversation. Whoa. My brain was blown from your information. I appreciate it, Cheryl. Sometimes it's fun. Something greater than a functional paradigm programming. Greater in what way? I don't feel like it diminishes anything. It's just talking about the technical aspect of it. It doesn't diminish anything in the experiential side of it. It's an old Sam Harris point, which is that knowing the chemical constituents of chocolate does not ruin the taste of chocolate. In fact, it allows you to produce better chocolate. Do you think the field could just be pure consciousness? Oh, finally, we got to the final message I haven't read. Bring McKenna, world made words. Once I thought that's what they were, based on the color schema I saw at the time. Powerball, yellow. Okay, I'm very happy that we finally got to the end of the comments that I missed. The glyphs I see make up objects. They also seem to independently change shape and size at times too. So Jamie, just question for you. Did you see the glyphs the way that I'm proposing with the laser and the molecule, or you see them naturally or in some other way that you're seeing it? Shine the light on some mercury mixed with blood. Joking. I'm glad you're joking. I don't think they would. Is there an understanding that you are the code too, or does it feel separate that you're? No, absolutely. You're the code. The code is you as well. Yes, it's on you. Human condition. We have to associate it with others. Solitary confinement being inhumane program. Immense connection. Yes, we agree with that. Connection is basically everything. Relationships. Okay, great. No comments. No comments. No comments. Something greater than the functional paradigm. My brain was blown away. We got that. Do you make VR? Oh yeah, so that's for you, Laszlo. Yeah, he does. Feel free to comment, but yeah, he does VR and AR, right? And he's also involved with a company that kind of does a similar thing to Neuralink on the side that works on the translation from the brain to the interface. Did I get it right?
Yep, exactly.
The entities sing gifts into existence. I've never seen that before. That's my favorite Terence McKenna description. The self-dribbling jewel basketballs that sing things into existence. I've never seen that before. I wish I would. I don't know what IDDQD means, but make one like Pokemon. Wait, Leslie codes. Make one like Pokemon Go, but you're trying to find pieces of the code around the city. Oh yeah, like you have embedded, like well, essentially we're playing this with the molecule, right? Then you
That might be a cool game idea. I might have to
Yeah.
prototype that.
Yeah.
Pokemon code.
That's amazing. You can find significant other on this. Can I find a significant other on the other side? That's amazing. People will stop at nothing in finding mates. Can I find a multi-dimensional girlfriend through the code? That would be awesome. Going to try and replicate the console first. Oh, that would be amazing if you can. Please let me know. Trip reports show NHI get frisky. Have you become familiar with an entity or entities? I see entities all the time. Some of them I'm familiar with that I know they're always like kind of like I know who they are. Am I personal friends with any of them? I can't say that. One of them once told me their name, which I definitely can't repeat, but I know for a fact they said their name, which was a weird, it's like a mixture of sound and feeling. I think the gesture may be pull pranks outside of the space. That's for sure the case. You think this code is in this real time? We saw that. Great comment. I love it. I'm not sure, but it's a really great thought. Like peeking into a future reality. Maybe. Sometimes I've seen regular people in there, which was very bizarre. I wanted to bring to Danny's attention an odd behavior of the code. Please let me know. What is it? You want to email me about it too? lasersimulationx@gmail.com. Speaking ultimately to the end game of totality, and also speaking to the beginning of anonymity. Interesting. I gotta think about that. Enjoy the ride may be the point. I'm most definitely certain that is the point, Amazing Amalia. So we're on the same page there. Patterns and rhythm are a theme in my own life. Amen. Does this mean that we're at the sign of the times? Is that a phrase? Feels like a phrase, and I'm not familiar with it. What does that mean, guys? The sign of the times?
It's like a song.
Oh,
The
okay.
end times, I think it's referring to like the time Christ comes back.
Huh. Okay. What do you
No, I
have?
don't know. Maybe it goes back to what we were talking about. Is just how the coincidental nature of all these technologies happening, as well as this sort of, like you said, awakening happening at the same time as AI is coming online at the same time that this anti-aging research could potentially have some breakthroughs at the same time that you're discovering this. Maybe just kind of
Yeah.
race back to that.
Also, Nathan, real question. Don't mean it in a like being a smartass. Isn't everything toroidal? I mean, no. Look, not toroidal. Or do you mean something a little bit more specific with that? My source of perhaps confusion. My source of perhaps confusion. Is there a code for spirits? First of all, I love the way it's phrased. This belongs in a book. Also, the source of my source of perhaps confusion. Amazing. Is there a code for spirits? I don't know. That's an interesting question. I think it's all spiritual, but others want to cling to technological terms. I don't think. I think that's just. I agree that there's a difference in tone there. I agree with that, but I'm not sure. So I actually feel the same way. Yesterday I was talking about it, Jamie. That I feel that a lot of spiritual people overlay their biases into that space, because I don't know if you're familiar with the space. Please, it's an open conversation. But to me, it never felt like, at least specifically with mushrooms and the spirit molecule, it never felt spiritual to me. Never. And if you ask people to do it a lot, they would tell you the same thing. But recently there was almost like a fad, like a fashion to talk about it in these spiritual terms. I don't think so. So this is just like very honest, kind of like, I don't think so. I think people just overlay their biases on top of it. Does that mean that what people experience with like the higher self in the spiritual space is not the real thing? No, I'm pretty sure it is. I'm just thinking that That was and they discovered that even if people are religiously predisposed, it's actually very rare that they would see angels or things like that. Sometimes it's like it did happen, but for the most part, even people who were like super spiritual or religious talked about aliens. They didn't talk about spiritual stuff. So it's more likely to me that actually this is more like a fashion than the truth about what people are experiencing at the moment in that space. Now, maybe you mean about a different kind of space where like you in your meditative space, or maybe you're one of these people that are waking up, then I would agree with you. Yeah, you're probably experiencing something that most people don't. But I assure you that it's not clinging to the concept. It feels technical. I have a counter argument to music that doesn't seem to be true for people that are deaf. Isn't it true that I'm actually asking, I don't know. Isn't it true that deaf people can still feel bass? Because it's a frequency versus a sound? Vibration is a universal function of creation. That is absolutely.
Deaf people still feel music.
There you go. Nathan, yes. I just don't want to be judgmental. Like I said, be judgmental all you want here, as long as you're respectful and nice. So, in other words, to keep an open mind, but not to the point that my brain falls out. Was that Whitehead? I forget who said that, but that's a perfect quote. There are consequences. Another really great, I think it was Whitehead, one of my favorite quotes. It's kind of like an answer to this another meme where people say anything is possible, or everything is this, or everything is source, or everything is that. And the quote is everything is possible. Some things just went through the formality of actually existing.
Nice.
Not the point of my brain. There are consequences of entering the rabbit hole too fast. You are right to be cautious. 100%. Couldn't agree with this more.
Yeah,
Wim Hof.
definitely.
Yep. Wim Hof has an impressive breathing program. I love Wim Hof. I do it. Recently, not so much, but I used to do it all the time, including the cold immersions. I love it. It's amazing. Plus, he is like, who would be a cooler guy to hang out with, man? He's so dope. His energy is just,
Iceman.
dude. His energy is just, oh, you just want to live around him. You know, he's amazing. Like, I have one that I use. You know, there's a lot of recordings by him, but there's one that I really love. That at the end he goes, "Feels good, huh?" He's so awesome.
Sounds like it needs to be like a soundbite
Dude,
meme.
he's so great. Might be why NHI disclosure is being delayed. The code might be manipulatable, such that disclosure happens sooner. Disclosure? Oh yeah, people talk about this, the disclosure. Then you probably figure out how to modify it first. Yeah, I would be keeping it under wraps if I do. Too many people want cheat codes. This scares me. I have a question. Is the Dalai Lama aware of the code? If so, why hasn't he disclosed it? Because he was busy sucking on a kid's tongue. Sorry, I had to. It happened. Hey.
I forgot about that. Oh no.
I'm sure he's really nice. It's like, now we're going to get flagged. I know
That
it.
was a little creepy,
Yeah.
I will say.
What makes you think he is? I don't know. I don't know if he is. Again, I guess the broader spectrum of this question is: are some of the people who are like really deep into the practices aware of some of these things? My jury's out on that. Like I said before, I do think when you give someone that experience, at least with the spirit molecule, you do see kind of like a different look in their eyes. They are surprised, even if they're like very versed in the. I've had it twice where people are very very deep in the meditative practice, and you let them try and they go whoa, and you go yeah.
Well, if you really start to think about the implications of it, I don't see how you couldn't be shocked.
Well, I guess the proposition is there a way to get there naturally? And then can these people do it? Like I said, maybe it's possible. but something tells me that maybe certain states, no. It's just at least in the level of specificity and content, I feel like no. Like with the 5-MeO, maybe, because it's more an immersive feeling, right? So that I'm pretty sure you can get to with some high meditative states. I'm almost convinced. But with the NN, it's so hyper specific. It's so coherent, and it's so visual that
Yeah.
I don't think
Yep.
so. Truly.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think there maybe there'll be some sort of there might be like other content you might be able to get access to, or other perspectives on it, maybe with these other mental states, or through other supplements, or through other technologies eventually. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, as far as like your brain rewiring itself to pick up on a new limb. There's been some interesting work on that. Like as far as like I mean, I don't even fully understand it. Like there was one company who was doing how do I even describe this? Basically, created a device that allowed you to see through your tongue.
Oh, was it? Are you talking about the guy that they attached some kind of a thing, or is that the different
No,
thing?
this is a device you would put in your mouth.
Whoa.
There's different ways that they've found that you can, like, I don't even know how to explain it. Basically, activate different sensory inputs. It only had like a resolution of like 100 by 100 or something, but basically, yeah, you're able to. I mean, that just goes to show you if you can. And I don't even know what that exactly would feel like as the observer, right? Like seeing through your tongue, and what that even means exactly.
Like a new qualia, basically, a new kind of experience
Yes.
that they've never had before.
Exactly,
Wait,
yeah.
weren't they? This is something that I've heard Zuckerberg talk about, and you're the perfect person to ask this. He was talking about potentially working on, especially with the Oculus, working on like potentially new senses. Maybe like new first with like something that just departs slightly from what we have. So maybe certain haptics that happen when right before you even like right when you approach an object or something like that. But then, do you know if there's like a lot of development in that direction? They're trying to create new
yeah.
types of experiences.
Yes, absolutely. So virtual reality up till now has mostly just been focused on the visual aspect of it. So that's why it's been such a big focus on headsets, because, well, first of all, the human brain is mostly, most of its energy, if I remember correctly, is dedicated towards your visual cortex. And that's basically like the strongest sense out of all your senses, I believe. And that's takes up also a large part of your brain's computational power, is deciphering that visual data. And so it just makes sense that because we're visual creatures that we should focus on a visual VR. But there's also a lot of other aspects to virtual reality, basically covering all of the senses of the body, and possibly even beyond that. So yeah, haptics is a big one, the physical sensations, and allowing you to, so Meta, Facebook, Oculus, basically they have an R&D lab, or several of them actually, where they're testing all of these different technologies, and one of them is like a glove that they're working on, basically. And so that several different gloves, and one of the goals of that is to basically allow haptic sensory touch feedback, so you're able to like feel weight, for an example, of an object that doesn't exist, like imagine holding like a ball in your hand that doesn't exist, and you're able to feel the weight, the gravity of it. Maybe you're able to squeeze it, and is this ball hard like a pool ball, or is it like spongy, like like a sponge
So like
ball?
you can actually feel texture as well.
Yep, and well,
Wow.
that would be more like resistance, what I'm describing there. But texture is a different thing. So that's like roughness and smoothness. And yes, they're also working on that as well. I've actually tested devices several years ago. That technology, they haven't mastered it, or made it practical. But yeah, there's haptic. Man, there's crazy stuff out there. I've seen devices at some of these conferences I've gone to, where it's like an expo of just experimental technology, where people are just trying different shit like this. I've seen, like haptic, like holding your hand up to a device that's like a plate. You're not wearing anything, and you can feel objects in the air, very similar to what you described when you're interacting with the console, like that fizzly.
The fizzing.
feeling?
Yeah.
There's actually technology based on ultrasound. A company that I worked with called Ultra Haptics, and they partnered with another company. Long story, but basically, one of their technologies was allowing you to feel haptic vibrations in the air, so you could simulate like putting your hand through something or up to something or grabbing something and feeling weight or resistance from it, as well as texture, and all kinds of different things. You can imagine feeling heat or cold. I've also seen other devices and the other senses like olfactory. So I've seen devices that can simulate smell, which is a whole.
Oh, there was a whole theater in Japan. There was a series of theaters in Japan that they tried to do this.
Oh.
Like, yeah,
I
with
haven't heard of this, but
yeah.
the company was actually, I believe, Japanese or Koreans.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
funny.
yeah. No, I think it was Japan.
They're
Yeah,
very
that-
into, the sensory, the sense of smell. It was pretty funny. I tried the demo and I put on a VR headset, and so you're in like a virtuality experience. But then, and this was a while ago, so I'm trying to remember. There was three demos of it basically. And the first one was like, so I'm in the virtuality room and there's like a table with a piece of chocolate on the table. And the guy has me pick up the chocolate. As I bring it up to my face in the game, I start to smell chocolate, sure enough.
Wow.
And then there was like, I think a coffee or something, and I picked that up, and then I smelled coffee. And then he kind of started chuckling a little bit. And I was like, uh-oh, what's the third thing going to be? Why is he laughing?
Smell the
And then
fart
he-
acting.
He's like, and then he kind of laughs and says, "Turn around." I turn around, and there's a beautiful anime woman standing behind me.
Of course.
I'm like, what? You want me to sniff the woman? What am I, Joe Biden here?
Scratch
So
and
I-
sniff. Yeah.
So sure enough, he has me sniff the woman, and yeah, it's like perfume. It's that was pretty interesting.
Oh, I'm glad it was
So-
just perfume, because
Yeah.
I can totally see where this technology is going for sure.
been worse.
Like
Could've been
90% of it is
worse.
probably gonna go there, right?
But yeah, so they're definitely, and those are just like different startups and stuff. But Meta's, yeah, they're definitely working on some other technologies for testing basically all the different sensory inputs in human anatomy. I imagine.
I'm so dude,
sound
like
as well. 3D sound is another really interesting one.
3D sound is it,
Yeah,
you mean more
3D.
more than Atmos or whatever it is?
Yeah. Yep. So yeah.
Oh,
combination of
oh,
that.
I know what you're talking about. The one that kind of sounds like there's this one that you can put on YouTube where they kind of like cut your hair and it sounds like it's
Yes.
going from all directions. Yeah,
I
yeah,
know,
yeah,
I
yeah.
know.
That's a
Yep,
cool
yep.
one. Yeah, that's
Yep.
a really cool one.
I think they're doing a mix of all of it. So like 3D, binaural audio, like trying to, yeah, that's a huge area of study. It's pretty.
We call it
impressive
we
what
call
they
it reality, man. This
Yep,
is the most
yep.
immersive
Just
thing ever.
reconstruct
And actually,
from the
Mr.
inside
Z
out.
Mr. Z gave us a perfect idea. Maybe I can play Ireless's music in the background gently next time. That will actually be very lovely. It will make things very like calm and beautiful.
Well, sound is a whole other topic we got to get into because I have many questions I want to ask about that as well.
Okay, awesome. Let's get into it. I'm just gonna read a few comments on YouTube, then we can do it.
Yeah, go for
The
it.
fact that glyphs change on static objects suggests that the glyphs are not programming the appearance of objects. Would you agree? No, I would not agree. I would say that we don't really know what it is. It seems to be the thing that codes for it. I would agree with you that it does not necessarily mean it codes for it, but I wouldn't say that it necessarily means it doesn't. Maybe the basketballs were buckyballs on a lower resolution. Dude, I don't know how I didn't think of that. Whoa. That's a great idea. With a lot of different frequencies reside, like with the blue laser, adding different elements to the code. Yes. Did anybody with severe synesthesia see the code? Would be interesting to hear from such individuals. Particular, I agree. That would be interesting. This was referring to the self-dribbling basketballs. Yeah, I understood you, which is very interesting. Or from linguistic or mathematical savants. Yeah, also a thing that I thought about, like the British man who wrote The Born on a Blue Monday. Oh yeah, Daniel Tammet. Yep, Daniel Tammet, to anybody who doesn't know, is a guy, I think now he's a mathematics professor, but he's one of the only savants in the world who also retained his ability to communicate like a regular person. Usually savants, by definition, the difference between them and just somebody who's really good at a task is that all of their brain is targeted towards one task. So they're basically, it looks like a superpower, but they pay the price of not being able to do anything else. They can't even tie their shoelaces, they can't communicate, right? But with Daniel Tammet, that was different. He was born normal, and then he had some kind of a seizure. I don't remember what age, but he was young. It was like 3 or 6 or something like that. And from that moment, he could basically feel all the relationships of all numbers, and he's one of these like people that can just solve anything. You can just give him, and what's interesting about him, because the way they tested that that's an actual ability later in life, obviously, is that because there are these schools, I think in China, where they teach kids like all these like mental shortcuts, and they can do these like crazy calculations on the fly. So they tested if he's not just like a very, very good actuator of this kind of method. So they got him, I think in San Diego, they got him to one of the biggest brain injury experts, and he connected him to a lie detector. Now, a lie detector just basically measures a galvanic response, which is essentially just like an immediate response of your body that produces some perspiration on your skin. I'm not sure if it measures anything else, but I think like maybe another thing. What, I'm not sure, but it just measures your body's response, immediate response, which cannot be faked. Or if, like, I know pathological liars and
electrical
psychopaths
signal
can do
measure
it, but it's
too.
very difficult. And basically what they ran pi, and so he held the world record. I think now it's somebody else, but he held the world record of reading out pi from his thoughts without any mistake. I think he got to 22,500 digits without mistake. It took like 2 something days. And what they did is they ran pi, and then they put mistakes in there on purpose. And every time there was a mistake, his body reacted first. It's like this is wrong. Like he just knows. And he describes it as seeing this very complex space of shapes and texture and colors. And when you give him an equation, one side of the equation is one shape, and another side of the equation is another shape. And whatever is left in the middle, whatever is missing, that's the answer. And that's how he knows. So that's his best description of it. So the reason that Mr. Z mentioned him, that's a great, I think he won't be the perfect person for this particular gig. I think the person who would be better for it. There's one guy who's like an actual human camera, which is, by the way, very rare. People tend to say, I have a photographic memory. No, you don't. There's only maybe like 5 people on the planet that actually do. But he's one of them. That's the guy that they flew over Rome and in a helicopter, and he had to paint all of Rome, and he made like, he got 2 windows wrong. So like over all of Rome, he painted all of Rome exactly with like, he got like 2 windows that were like missing in the Colosseum or something. So someone like that, he would be perfect for this. Or like we said, an advanced version of Neuralink that can basically record from your cortex. But yeah, regardless, Daniel Tammet is a fascinating human, and he can also learn any language within a week. And the way they tested him is they did it for the documentary. They actually also BBC Horizon made about him that I mentioned to you today, Laszlo. And they basically, Icelandic is known to be one of the hardest languages to both pronounce and the actual grammar of it. And he had to learn it in a week with a tutor, but he had to learn it well enough to go on their national television. And so he did this, and then he went on national television in Iceland, and he blew the interviewers away. They were like, he was holding a conversation. He could understand everything. He could say it back. So he has this like crazy ability with languages too. So fascinating guy.
That's amazing. There's so much power in the human body we're capable of. It's incredible. I really appreciate you on this platform having conversations like this. It's helping expand all this consciousness around us. I have to go to bed. Danny, thanks for having me
Have a
out.
good night, James. You're always a blessing. Come back. Have a good
Cheers.
night.
See you, James.
See you,
No, I've
James.
heard it. Just to finish up that point, I've heard it's put as like the brain is better at forgetting information than it is remembering. So, like, just imagine if you didn't have that valve and you were actually forced to remember everything. It would actually kind of be a nightmare. Like, you would be aware of like the color of the just the leaf outside of your window
Oh yeah.
right now.
Oh, you're
Or
talking
like
about people with perfect memories. That also
Yeah.
exists. That's a nightmare. Like they literally
Well, isn't
cannot
that kinda
forget. That's
similar to
crazy.
I'd never heard of the human camera thing. Isn't that similar to that?
No,
how is that-
he can just imprint. No, the perfect memory is different because they literally remember. They can see memories, from what I understand. I'm
Yeah.
not them obviously, but from what I understand from the descriptions, they can see memories as vivid as they can see reality. So they basically, literally, maybe not exactly like that, but they
But close enough.
they cannot omit a detail about anything that has ever happened that they know about. But that's different from photographic memory, which again is super rarity. That literally these people almost don't actually exist. But there's one savant for sure that he can do it, and it's just the visual field for him. Perfect memory, actually, that's an interesting thing because perfect memory should also imply photographic memory, but somehow
Yeah.
they're not really talked about in the same. I never thought about that.
Well,
Interesting.
yeah. I have to look into that.
Yep,
That's I wonder-
that is an interesting point. I never thought about that.
It just makes you wonder how much, like, because it makes sense that you're like able to bring all the data's coming in through your senses, but the fascinating part is that you're able to like
Yeah,
hold on to
did
it,
you-
like,
yeah,
the storage
the-
space.
This is the thing that fascinates me about the story of Daniel Tammet more than anything else. Well, all savants really, but with him in particular, because he was born completely normal. Something happened, so he had some kind of a fire, like electrical storm in his brain when he was a kid, and then it rewired him. I don't know if he just got lucky, right? But that means that that's possible for everybody, because his brain is just a brain, right? It means that there's some combination of the switches in the brain that allows this to happen, which means
Right.
that if it can happen once, all we have to do is to figure out exactly what happened, which obviously is a very monumental task, but it's possible.
That's kind of the point that I was getting at is maybe it's not like an ability that we have to unlock. Maybe that's native in everybody's brain, but it's really that we have a limitation, a governor, so to speak, put on, right? A cap to make sure that doesn't happen. And once you remove that cap, those abilities come out. I think it's maybe that's the way I think of it anyways. It's more like there's restrictions that have been placed on by, evolution or by whatever. But those native kind of latent abilities probably exist in most everybody, if not everybody, to some extent.
That would actually make a lot more sense, because the possibility I mentioned, it means that he just got really lucky, and from this infinite number of switches, it got exactly the right combination, which is much less likely than this ability
Right.
is there and you're just removing some kind of a screen that prevents it from coming to fruition. Yeah.
Yep.
This rely so it evolved over time, but then it got suppressed in some form. That actually makes a lot more sense. This relies on a dynamic that reality is a toroid and is a self-replicating shape or a perfect fractal. It repeats itself, and from that layer, all seeming object differentiations emerge. I think I understand what you're saying. So I think you have something like that is, I mean, the Mandelbrot set fits the bill of what you just described. Blue Day, not Blue Monday, sorry. Yeah, Daniel Tammet is definitely incredible. Dude, you are addicting. I cannot take part in this to this degree. Wait. I have to work switching to spect. I take it as a compliment, Danny.
I love it.
Real life Rain Man, Daniel Tammet. Mr. Z, again, I don't know if you know this, but real life Rain Man is an actual person who's not Daniel Tammet. There's an actual Rain Man on which the movie The Rain Man is based on. I forget his name, but there's also the Rain Man who can read a book 2 pages at a time. He can literally look at 2 pages, next, 2 pages, next, and he remembers 10,000 books by heart. Every single dot, it's crazy. And he can do that thing like in the movie where you throw matches on the table and he can tell you how many. That's an actual person, but that's a different person. He sees imagined objects, ideas, strings, numbers. He can recite a number of digits. Oh, you said already everything I was saying. I just haven't read the comments. Apologies. He sees numbers of pi. You could contract and interview him. Yes. Somebody wouldn't mind. Okay, so we said all this. Yes. And look at that, I remembered 22,514 digits of pi. Woohoo! In his head. Okay, so basically, he just explained to us what Daniel Tammet is. Thank you so much, Mr. Z. I appreciate you bringing it on. Tammet sees numbers as objects, landscapes. Okay, so basically everything I said. But you said it before me, obviously, I just didn't see. James, you hit it right there. Yep. Okay. Let's go a little bit more on TikTok. In the meanwhile, while I'm reading these, do you have specific questions you wanted to bring up with sound? You can think about it. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
There was a question that just popped into my mind in a different direction. Because I forgot where I wanted to go with sound. But regarding the what we were talking about, opening, like extending the window, so to speak. I don't know how much value there even is to that, but you also mentioned, and I've heard of quite a few people ask about like the different colored lasers and how that seems to reveal some different content from what you've said. One idea I had was like, would there be a way to maybe combine that? So one idea I had as far as like extending the window, because right now the laser is basically like a line, right? Like a bar or potentially a cross. The one that I have is just a line. But one way that you could potentially extend the window, instead of like stacking lasers or trying to come up with a lens to combine lasers, one thought I had is you could actually just extend the window with just the same laser. If I understand what you're saying is correct, anyways, and basically the way we could do that is by actually moving the laser. So one way to maybe describe this better to you is are you familiar with like a holographic fan?
Oh my God, you nailed it. So you nailed it. I had that idea. There's there's like these like kind of like clocks that kind of just a metronome that goes really fast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it shows the time. So
Yeah.
what my fiance discovered is that when you go like this with your eyes,
Yeah.
you can actually see it much easier. So there's something about frequency. You're absolutely right. This is why my original laser looks so janky, actually, because I thought originally I'm going to be able to put some kind of a metronome in the front of it. I never got around to it, but I should probably do it.
And actually move the laser, you're saying, so that you can kind of create like a.
Oh no! I think I went with your idea a little in a different direction. That it creates basically a frequency to it.
Like a gap, it sort of stutters it. Or,
Yeah, it stutters it. Yeah, exactly. Just like when you take a frame like this, things seem to be static, right? They stop, so it's easier
like
to
a
see.
strobe effect. You're trying to achieve
Exactly.
a strobe effect.
The strobe. Oh, why did I forget about this idea? I had it in the beginning.
So that was one idea. Is strobing it. The other idea is actually so a holographic fan. Like if you just go on YouTube and search hologram fan, you guys will see what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But there's sort of like these. It's basically like a fan, like a propeller blade.
Okay.
And they spin at a super fast rate, and once it starts spinning fast enough, that blade becomes there's a strip of LED.
Oh yes.
lights
I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay.
So the idea is, what if we attach a laser, because the laser is a line, right, to one of those blades of the fan, so to speak. Or even several
Oh, so it
lasers.
spreads it around.
And it's paints.
Interesting.
Yes, you could basically paint a circle on the wall, a window. It would be like a portal, a sphere.
Right. Oh, well, we had the lasers spun, like we built some, well, not me, but two different people, they built a model of the laser in which it spins on, one with a fan and one with just what is it
Here we
called?
go.
Yeah, and then it just spins. I don't think it's visible.
Oh, it didn't
No,
work?
it doesn't make it more visible, I think.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So I think it's moving too fast, but I'm sure that maybe a version of this might work actually.
Well, that's what, the only reason it wouldn't work is the laser's not emitting. Like, is there a frame rate? I don't know enough about lasers, but is the laser pulsing? So it's basically not consistent of a light enough where it's because if it's completely consistent, it should just paint a red circle on the wall, right? And a bigger viewing space. I don't know. Interesting.
Yep. But that's a great idea, and actually it's a good thing you remind me about the strobe, because that's probably going to work to help stabilize the signal, and maybe we can even read something in there. I don't know why I dropped that idea. Before I forget, Jamie said the interesting behavior I wanted to point out is that the shapes are discernible through a security camera. Can you tell me what you mean by that? I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Security camera. Jamie with laser molecule? Oh, is it? Cal is always on it. Yes, it's much harder to notice the symbols sober. Yeah, of course. It's interesting. Are you saying that you see them sober? I think he's talking that everything has a resonant frequency and that it's toroidal. Oh. I'm not sure that all resonant frequencies are toroidal. Why is toroidal even relevant to frequencies? The symbols are strictly... Am I missing something? The symbols are strikingly similar to Alison Gray's secret writings. I'm aware that Danny does not think so. So I keep trying to understand, Jamie. Are you talking about the symbols in the laser the way I'm suggesting it, or in any other way? Because I'm telling you, it's not that I don't think so. I'm saying that the thing in the laser definitely doesn't look like the Alison Gray. Like, it doesn't look like it at all. It looks like Japanese. Are you saying that you see it in the laser, the Alison Gray ones? If so, I would submit that these are larger structures. What you're looking for is even smaller. These don't look... There's no way you can mistake them for the Alison Gray ones. Now, it's possible, of course, that maybe you see something new and unique and different, and maybe you see another channel, and I'm open to that. But I'm telling you from hundreds of reports that it does not look like the Allison Gray characters. At least in the laser. Obviously, I think what Allison saw was also real. She just saw it in a different way from a different place. This is why I keep saying I do think there are a few codes running at the same time on different channels and in different ways of perceiving them. And then because at the smallest level, atoms beyond atoms, everything is toroidal. Who told you that, Nathan? Like, what framework are you using? Because are you talking? Oh, you're talking about kind of like Nassim. What's his name, right? Nassim Hamed, or what's his name? He's not sure what to make of him, brother. I mean, yes, he is a physicist, but he is making noises that don't make a lot of sense in context of actual physics sometimes. I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but beyond atoms, so beyond subatomic particles, beyond electrons and protons, or quarks, really, not protons, it's not clear what is there. I mean, we the smallest natural scale is Planck's scale, and it is smaller than a subatomic particle as a subatomic particle is smaller to us. That's how small it is. And the reason that we call it the smallest natural scale is because beyond that we start getting probabilities that are more than 100% or zero, things that don't really make sense in like any framework. It doesn't mean there's nothing beyond that, but I've never heard, at least not in the physics perspective, that anybody suggested that any toruses, under, if you're talking about strings, which is one theory, right? But strings are not toroidal. Even the brains that they postulate, like membranes on which these strings live, they're not toroidal. I mean, they have different kinds of shapes and they describe them mathematically pretty concretely. But as far as I know, none of it is toroidal. So I'm not sure. Maybe you're using a different frame, and I'm not misunderstanding you. I'm brewing up a batch said molecule. Are the code shapes possibly parts, pieces, or perspectives of toroid shape? No, you're really obsessed with toroids. It's really funny. Quarks. Oh, there you go. Cal was already on it. Quarks toroidal. An observer point of the toroid. I think you're using some kind of a frame. I don't mind. Going on that journey with you, but I need you to tell me what frame are you using. It's not clear to me. There's a lot of ideas, but some ideas, went through the formality of actually existing. So which frame, which kind of theory are you using to postulate this? Because I know people are obsessed with toroid, with that shape, right? And it is a unique shape. It's interesting. But where are you coming from? Because this is not what physics would say. Let's just say that. You're talking about that? What is it called? The toroidal math or something? Is that what you're talking about? Field. Okay. So yes, magnetic field is toroidal. That is true. Everything fractal toroid would be code. Everything. Wait, I'm really trying to understand. Let me see if I can understand this. I get so excited when we get into physics. The symbols are strikingly similar to. Okay, I saw that. So a blind person could never see the code. At least in the moment, until Elon fixes it. Hell, they're probably more inclined to see it. I don't think so. I'm just tempted to look into the light. Please don't. Somebody said don't. You'd still have to spend a significant time learning. Yep. You'd have on a glove. Aren't quarks and antiquarks just what we label the opposite spin pole of toroid? No, not in that frame. No, and also particles and antiparticles. All particles and antiparticles. All particles have antiparticles, according to the standard model. I'm not familiar with any frame in it which comes from quantum field theory, I'm not even talking about the shape. Even topologically, which is the only way in which it could potentially make sense, I'm not familiar with any topological argument for these structures to exhibit toroidal regularities. Doesn't mean that it cannot be. I might not know, but it just, from what I know, I don't think so. I don't know, but let's say they are. What's next? Also a good question. VR that messes with inner ear would be amazing, so we could sense movement. There you go. There's an idea. Is this something that's already being done? I think it was for you, Laszlo. VR that messes with the inner ear would be amazing, so we could sense movement. Like you can actually mimic movement even if you're not moving. That's brilliant. Tobo Rodriguez is a great song. Nathan, every particle is toroidal at base form because of positive and negative vortices. Interesting. So it is true, actually, now that I think of it, that electrons have a magnetic instance. So like they have a but I don't know if you can think of it in terms of a toroid, because an electron is a one-dimensional object. Zero-dimensional object. It exists in a field. Something you need to think about. This is an interesting thought, actually. Just that is everything's fractal toroid would be parts of perspective of toroid. Okay, that's just, I don't know what you said there. There was a guy that became a savant after getting hit in the head. Apparently, he can see shapes. Yeah, it is a common thing for getting hit in the head or something. I've developed this kind of stuff. I think you're talking about the guy who got beat up. Nathan, it could be. Do humans look like toroids? The electromagnetic field is nice. We do have a toroidal field around us, but I mean we're all atoms. Right? Stephen was. Magnet is made by aligning all the atoms toward the same way, then create magnetic field. That is true to an extent. What is that? Oh my god. Hey baby. Hey booba. She wants to play. I got booped.
Is that the puppy?
I guess she just like she brought a toy and she just pressed it on my back.
Yep.
She's like,
it's
yep.
demand playtime
we're,
now.
We're playing, Papa. Okay, baby, in a moment. I'll massage your ear in the meanwhile. She's like, screw you, I don't need this. She seems to say with her walking away. Magnet is made of. So that is actually true to an extent. The magnet is made out of atoms. By magnetic moments do combine. That is true. They're fractal in that way. But magnetism in general is actually a very interesting phenomenon. It's not that straightforward. It's a departure from the electromagnetic field, which is the combination, the carrier of which is light, which is interesting all by itself. And then when you perturb either the electric field, you would have a perturbation in the magnetic field and vice versa. So when you would influence the magnetic field, you would get electricity, and the other way around, which is an interesting thing by itself. Something tells me that you're pointing to something that might be of value, actually. So I'm really trying to understand what you're saying. I guess my question to you, Nathan, I would re-ask what Cal asked you. Suppose everything you're saying is correct. Okay, now what? Like to what effect are you saying all this? Have you seen those kids of that guy who reads really fast? LOL. Just turns the pages in like 10 seconds. Oh, the guy who was like, I'm the best reader in whatever.
Speed reader.
Yeah, he's like blah, 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 blah.
There's learned skills you can learn. That's another thing, going back to memory. That's I don't know, some people may be familiar with Harry Lorraine. Is one of the world's foremost memory experts. That guy can do some pretty amazing stuff, and he's not like a savant. He didn't have any head injuries or anything like that, and just basically has trained himself to do like super amazing memory feats of memory. So it's also like going back to our point earlier about maybe some of these things are just latent abilities, and it's just a matter of unlocking them, so to speak. He's actually written a lot of books and teaches people on how to improve their memories and do like you can basically his theory is that you can like do it yourself and learn to become sort of a savant, and it's just a matter of like knowing
What's the
how to
name?
do it.
What's the name?
Harry Lorraine.
Harry Lorraine. Okay.
Yeah, he's a memory expert. Just look into him.
Oh, look at that.
Stuff.
Okay, well, I definitely look at it. Thank you for all the gifts, guys. I appreciate it. All kinds of new things I've never seen, like an origami swan or whatever it
I
was.
just saw like a dolphin or something.
It was. Yeah, TikTok is great in that way. It's very visually pleasing. So Nathan, you saying could be that the code is kind of hologram projection in same way magnet field is visually. Maybe. So again, as I'm sure you heard me talk about before, like right now, one of my biggest aims is to try and get like a very powerful magnetic field to actually play with it to see what happens. So something tells me that something about what you're saying can potentially be true. I'm not quite sure what you mean by all of this because you don't see the toroids in the magnet in the laser, and trying to imagine what you might mean by this. So why would it be? So the reason that I know that it's not a projection from the laser is because it's in the surface, and when you move the laser, it's not moving with it. It's just in the surface. It is the. But I think, Nathan, honestly, it's a product of. It's very common, and people try to imagine it. When you see it, a lot of these postulations collapse. You don't need them anymore because you can see it and you can understand what the nature of it just by seeing it. That it could be another reality or dimension just passing through. That is very, very possible. So the Rainman has his time dilation would explain it, right? Actually, it would.
He's
Counting
just slowing down
counting
time.
cards are definitely counting cards. What?
He's just slowing down time. That's his
Yeah. Only that he can't do anything else. He's just like standing there like this.
He's just
Can you show us the laser? Yeah, I can show you the laser. I'll show you the original ones, which is like super janky and hilarious. I'll show you right now. Laser plus hand drill. You could possibly get the right speed. Yeah, we did that, Cal, actually. You don't see it as well. Thank you for your information out there tonight. I'll be back. See you, Cheryl. Thank you so much. Just get a fan, and we did it also with a fan. It doesn't look as good. You can see the shapes, but maybe it's just you need a higher output, honestly.
Well, the reason I brought that up was also combining them because you could potentially put like all three of it or different colored lasers or different spectrums and then have it spinning and somehow maybe that would combine. That's kind of where I was going with that. But
Yeah, no. Again, it's a valid idea. We tried it. I think it's just like so far it didn't work, but maybe there's
what would
a
that look like if you were able to achieve combining all the lasers, whether it's through a fan or through a lens or something like what would that produce? You know, is that even possible? Can you combine and focus three different lasers in the same spot? I imagine you could do. Have you tried that? Just overlapping in the beam?
it doesn't make it more, no. Just
You're not seeing anything different.
no, same thing. It's really like so matter of fact. This is what Kel was talking about yesterday. That it's so matter of fact that it's almost like what? Like it just
It's
looks
just a
so
flashlight.
normal. It's like,
Yeah.
what is this? Like, it doesn't have any of the magical properties that people might, imagine. And to your comment, Jamie, they're easier to see on security cameras. I don't know specifically how you seeing it in security cameras, but not in a sober state. I'm not sure the substance matters. No, I think the substance matters a lot because maybe some people like you can see it without the substance, but most people definitely can't. So the substance makes it democratic. It makes it available for everybody, basically. Using a frame. Oh my god, I hate when it does that. It just jumps, and then I have to find the comments again. I don't know why it's doing that.
Yeah, what do you see? Is it just scrolling on you?
It's scroll and it's I need a better way, of course. I eventually need like a regular moderator, but we'll get there. Get the right speed, frequency, laser. Okay, we got that. They're easier to see while not in sober. Okay, we got that. Good night, everyone. Good night, McCurry. Thank you. Using the frame of Mobius strip. Yeah, Mobius strip is also super interesting because it also describes spinners and how they behave, which is basically what we see bosonic matter does, which is super interesting. Footnote, didn't use a laser. Actually, wait, no, that's fermionic. That's fermions, I think. Damn, I forget. Okay, somebody can correct me here. Footnote, didn't use a laser, accidental discovery. Yeah, I don't, Jamie. The comments are too short and too scattered. If you can just put one comment that says, "I saw the code without using the molecule. I used the laser." Make a coherent sentence because it's scattered and I'm scrolling through 1,000 comments and I'm really trying to understand everything everybody is saying. So, I think it's electric universe theory, the toroidal. Yeah, which is definitely not the case. What are your experiments you have conducted? You asking me? Conducted individually, you can rely confidently. Thank you so much for all the gifts. Amazing Amalia and Jamie. I appreciate you. I know you don't see toroid. I'm wondering if the symbols or shapes of the code you see can fit nicely within the toroid. But can't anything? Are the images the interactions of the toroid? Is that what he's saying? Maybe red, blue, green laser to create white light laser color theory. As far as I know, you can't combine lasers. That's the whole point of a laser. And if there's anybody here who's like a light expert, please correct me. But as far as I know, also from experience, when you're putting a red laser and a green laser, they don't combine. You can see the red and the green at the same time because it's coherent light, literally the same energy level. I don't think you can actually mix them to make the same thing happen. Maybe if you do it all the way from the diode. No, the whole idea of a laser is that it's
Yeah, I think it's separate. Like you
yeah,
said,
the
it's
whole
kinda
the whole thing of a laser is that it's not all the frequencies combined. It's one frequency. That's exactly what a laser is. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you scroll, try to stay away from button left when the new message button appears. I see. Okay. No, but sometimes I'm not even touching it. But thank you for that comment. I know you don't see. Okay, we got that. I get. Oh, you know what happens? I get to the end, and then it just jumps. Camera doesn't make it easier. Just an interesting observation of the object seen through it. Eyes. I feel like you said this before. I saw the code. The business singing a song. I saw the code. It opened my eyes. I saw the code. I'm not sure if that was the melody, but it is now. It's hard to explain. I know, I understand what you're saying. You can fit anything on any surface. That's my question. It's a little arbitrary, isn't it? You can take I can take anything and I can wrap it around a toroid. What is specifically do you think that about what elements of the code that you're envisioning make it especially well designed to be specifically put around a toroid? The only thing that would make sense of that is if, let's say, the buckyballs in which it's arranged would map onto a toroid in a perfect way, but you're going to need like an actual topology analysis of the mathematics of the surface to see if it really fits. I don't even know how to go about that. Eyeballing it is definitely not going to do. You know what I mean? When I say with confidence, what are your beliefs you adhere to at this point in time, if any? My beliefs? I mean, I try not to think of it in terms of what I believe, unless you ask me about something very specific. I can't tell you what my beliefs are because that's too broad. But if you ask about something specific, I can tell you what I believe. Okay, so a few more comments from YouTube, and then we'll slowly bring it to a close. The speed of changes, running speed, different color lasers. No, the speed is the same. Great question. Same idea. That was to you, Ava, on YouTube. Some ideas went through the rigor of actually existing. He's like, let me go, Danny. Dude, you can watch it later. Listen, I take it as a huge compliment, but I don't want to ruin your life. Because for him, it's like the middle of the night. But blind person still can touch objects. Yes. Hey! Well, she got mad at him. And sell objects.
What are you doing?
Did you test your experiment on a blind person? Actually, no, I never tested on a blind person. It is actually my lack of self-discipline, but take letting me go as being too fun to be engaged with as a compliment. I take it as a huge compliment. I feel a little bad, but who knows, maybe a blind person could see it. Yeah, maybe. Until, I don't think so, but maybe. Until we test it, we cannot know for sure. That is true. To what extent seeing the code is visual ability? All of it, 100%. or cognitive. I think it's 100% visual. I mean, yeah, I think there is this element that like the aliens hinted at, which is it's a choice to not see it. So in that sense, maybe there's some conceptual blindness, but it's 99% visual. It's very mundane in its appearance. That's also one of the reasons why it's so mesmerizing. You could test people with strange abilities or disabilities in order to learn new things. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Could it be that laser light activates the runes? No. Maybe because they run in the background too, and you can see the ones that are not in the light more opaquely, but they still move exactly the same. No. I don't think it's like that. If there's anything that actually convinced me that physical reality exists, is that. How do we know whether the runes exist without eliminating by laser light? We don't know. Another question. Like I said, and I know that this is a comment that came before I said what I said. But yeah, when you're projecting the laser, you see the outskirts of the characters that are not being revealed by the laser. You can see them opaquely, and if you like look close attention, you put close attention on the wall, you will see that you see them without the laser. It's just super subsumed. It's kind of hard to see. The laser makes it super visible, and when you look at the opaque ones, the ones that are without the laser, they're doing the same thing. They're moving exactly in the same way. So you do know that they're working without the laser being there. Do runes change if project onto something else? Well, versus human body? No. Human body, everything is the same characters. Different screen objects, different runes, same thing so far. What's up, Azamun? Good to see you. I'm gonna have to literally adjourn in 2 seconds, but thank you so much for coming. What time zone are you in? Just so you know, because I might be actually doing it earlier and earlier, so just to try and fit it into most people's schedule. Skeptically thinking we accidentally discovered how the brain processes pattern. Yeah, I don't think so. This is all, Jamie. I'm you know, just because I've been having this conversation for over 3 years now, even with people that are, you know, very technical in their abilities. So like people with, you know, neuroscientists and some physicists, and we went through the whole gamut of all the possibilities. And it doesn't mean that they're all convinced by it, but I've came to understand that unless you see it, this is just like we're just going in circles. You can't. You have to see it. After you see it, you'll see that it's not like that. It does not behave like a thing. When something is kind of there or maybe an illusion, even if you're not sure, you have the feeling that you're not sure, right? In this case, you don't have the feeling you're not sure. You're absolutely sure. There's no distance there between how regular objects behave and how this behaves. And it's a point that is very difficult to drive home unless you've seen it before. Cal can tell you for himself. And this is something I talked about before. There's a term used by cognitive scientists. It's called objectness. It is designed to describe the full set of all repertoire of qualities that objects in three-dimensional space exhibit. In other words, it is the unfakeable bill of regular physical objects, because the way that ambient light interacts with regular objects is very unique. In fact, Laszlo can tell you, one of the biggest challenges in the augmented reality and virtual reality space was human skin. Because there's something about the particular shine, the tone, and the way that light interacts with skin that was extremely difficult to mimic. There was something about it. Laszlo can probably tell us specifically what was the issue there, but I know that was one of the biggest struggles. And what the ultimate point is that you have this objectness to things. And somebody brought up people with synesthesia. One of the examples used to illustrate what objectness is that people that suffer from synesthesia, naturally, not induced by some kind of a substance, never confuse synesthetic color with a regular color. They would never confuse them. Because a synesthetic color is internally produced, it is not a meeting of where the mind meets what you would call objective reality. So it's different. Like they can see a synesthetic color, but they know it's coming from the inside. They don't confuse it with a regular color on the wall, never. Because the color on the wall has objectness. It's just very, like, we know what 3D objects do. The code exhibit objectness. That's the best way I can tell you.
That's a really interesting data point. I actually didn't know that about synesthesia. That because I've heard, the brain sort of like it has a hard time distinguishing imagination from reality, because it's also activating a lot of those same parts of your neurons, and the same neurology is also similar to dreaming. But so that's interesting to hear that they're able to distinguish, like, the fake colors versus the real ones. Just, quote unquote.
Yeah, it's a term I didn't know, and if I would, it would make my life easier, because in the first video I put out on the subject, I called it epistemologically sound, because I couldn't find any other better term.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one for.
Yeah, it's basically like you just and somebody challenged me and they're like, you mean ontologically sound? I said, no. I mean epistemologically sound. It's the how I know-ness of it, apparent in it. So it's not that it's also would be coherent to say that it's now included in my ontological pool of things that I consider real. That is true. But what I was trying to convey with that term is that how do I know it's realness of it, which is what epistemology is. How do I know, right? How do I know it's actually realness of it is embedded in the object itself. Like I just know. And that, in fact, has a term, which is objectness, which I didn't know until I read Anil Seth's book, Being You, or Being You. It's actually a great book. It summarizes all the newest neuroscience and what we understand about the cognitive and consciousness research. So it's called Being You, I think, by Anil Seth. And there he talks about that a little bit. What exists, what's not in your brain. And it's reserved for physical objects. From an evolutionary standpoint, it makes sense, because you definitely need to know what is an illusion and what is not when you can. So, for example, at night, when things are more, because there's different cones activated at night. That's why you see black and white at night and not in color. But usually, this is also why your depth perception suffers, because there's not that much distinction between the colors. But also, wait, is it less cones? I think it's also less cones. If I'm not, I might be wrong on that one. I'm not sure. But anyways. At night, if you see walking in the evening and it's like Twilight Zone or evening, and then you're watching some kind of a bush that kind of looks like maybe a person, and you're already paranoid, and your brain might kind of like make it look like it's moving or like it's an actual person. Yes, there's a kind of like a weird state there where you're not sure. But if in that moment you stop yourself and ask, do I know that I'm not sure? The answer is yes. You know you're not sure, right? It's kind of like neither here nor there.
Yeah.
You don't have that problem with the code and the laser. That's what I'm saying. So like, this is why thinking that it's a speckle or some kind of a visual illusion, it completely betrays the experience of it. It's like I understand it. I get it. I get the impulse to do this, but like it completely misses the point. Like believe me, it's there's no confusing there. Like I wouldn't be basing such a strong position on something that would be that flimsy. With the speckle effect in particular, it's absurd. The speckle effect is so clearly an illusion. Like you can see that it's an illusion, right? You can see when you move your head, it's kind of moved. Like
You can
like
see
there's
it
no.
without the molecules. So
Yeah,
like what you're talking about.
No, but like, who can possibly confuse the speckle effect with something that they might think is real? That it's not even. It doesn't compute for me, right? No, it's not like that at all.
Well, it's also so easy to just like try it yourself, and it's sort of funny that so many people tend to like argue it, like no, instead of just. And I understand there is some barriers to people trying it, but
Yeah, it's not for everyone. That's for sure.
but in some ways it is really simple. It's like, yeah, you just need a light and a molecule.
Yep, but again, it's not that I necessarily recommend it for everybody, but yeah, to all the scientists that vehemently argue against it without trying to explain it away, at that point I go, listen, you go do it, you come back and talk to me. After you do it, you have the same story to tell, I'm all ears. I want to know. Otherwise, we're just going in circles here.
Well, that's what makes it so interesting, though. It's sort of like, yeah, you gotta experience it.
Yep. Okay, guys, I'm going to take 3 more comments. Skin has a lot of variations. And is that, by the way, what I mentioned about the skin, why was it that it was so difficult? Somebody, Azamoon, said skin has a lot of variance in oil levels, texture, opacity, thickness, etc. It also can be backlit and have varying degrees of opacity and illumination based on angles and types of light shining on it. So first of all, thank you for that very detailed comment. Is that why? Is that
That's spot on. Yeah, subsurface scattering. The light. It was very complex rendering.
Oakland time? Oakland 4 p.m. What? I'm confused. Is Oakland? Oh, Auckland. I'm AUCKLAND. You have been all serving for months, years, and changes evolution. Sorry, I don't know what that means. So it's 4 p.m. at the moment. Okay. Any evolution of runes? No, it's always the same so far, Eva. Listen. I'm the first person to want to tell you a story in which we've managed to change it. I think it will happen with the magnet. I really hope so. But so far, no luck. Not with sound. Not with anything. No, never changes. Many types of runes. I can't really tell you, and I wouldn't call them runes. To me, they don't appear as runes. They look more like numbers, Japanese and Hebrew. These are the closest things that I would say they look like. I can't tell you that I counted them because there's millions of them and they're moving very fast. I'm frozen still? Oh, New Zealand. Okay. All right. I never know who is who. Listen, there's so many people. Well, I think I know who you are. Good to see you here. How we can see that. Okay. All right, guys. I apologize. The spirit molecule digital. I have to adjourn. It was amazing 3 hours. Tomorrow I might start a little earlier. Love you all. Laszlo, you're a blessing, brother. Thank you so much. Let's work some magic together.
Yeah, thanks again, man. It was a great stream. Enjoyed it.
Have a good night. Peace and love, everybody. See you tomorrow. Okay. Twitch, YouTube, and X. Thank you so much, guys. Today we had a much bigger representation here. I wonder where most of it come from, but thank you, everybody. Peace and love. See you tomorrow.